It all starts with a game called Prison Day, created by a dark cosmic god just to pass the time. This forced participation game features dungeons of varying difficulties, and players are chosen at random. However, if you fail on this journey, you'll be permanently sealed inside the game with no chance of escape. Because of this, everyone believed they could defeat the boss, get an S-rank card, and become a winner. But in the midst of all this destruction, the sole survivor of this cruel game was just one person. Our protagonist thought that by clearing dungeons and growing stronger, he would achieve his desires, but the outcome was becoming a god. Yet, he seems anything but happy with this ending, declaring he won't become a member of the Dark Gods. An entity then tells Tokiya to join to gain eternal life and the power of a god so they can rule together. This dark being then questions if he will truly abandon his qualification to become a deity. Tokiya confirms, lamenting that even after making all the right choices, he ended up losing his mother, his friends, and his girlfriend. Next, we see flashes of the protagonist's memories, showing that everyone important to him was lost in this game. The Dark God addresses the lone survivor, Kurosu Tokiya, and asks for his next wish. The young man's only wish was to have a peaceful, normal life with the people he loved by his side. At that, he recalls his girlfriend asking him out for a weekend date while holding her hand. Fueled by this memory, the protagonist yells that the entity destroyed everything, and now he will wipe away this world and its painful history. Suddenly, a brilliant light erupts from our hero's hand, and a golden card begins to materialize. He warns the god to stop its threats, as this card holds a power the entity cannot control. Tokiya then unveils his time reversal card, which can erase everybody's memories and let him redo his life. Seeing this, the entity is stunned, unable to believe the young man managed to obtain such a card. The being remarks that this is interesting and hopes to meet him again before vanishing. With an intense glow, the time reversal effect of the golden card activates. Tokiya vows that he will return prepared and won't let anything precious be taken from him again. Suddenly, the protagonist's eyes fly open, showing that the effect worked. He jolts awake in a hospital bed, completely disoriented and unaware of his surroundings. Looking around with a bewildered expression, the young man tries to process what just happened. The protagonist stares at his own hands, finally realizing he successfully traveled back in time. He scans the room and wonders if he's really in Midorasaki City Hospital. Just then, his mother enters the room and worriedly asks if he had another nightmare. With a gentle smile, she approaches and comforts him, saying she's there and he doesn't need to worry. Seeing his mother alive and well before him, Tokiya is utterly shocked and softly calls her name. He remembers that in the previous timeline, her consciousness was sealed in the game, leaving her in a vegetative state. Overcome with emotion, the young man embraces her tightly, telling her how much he missed her. Confused by her son's reaction, she asks if his condition has worsened. We learn that Kurosu Tokiya has been hospitalized since childhood with a severe dissociative disorder. Because of this, he constantly hears the voices of multiple personalities in his head, but no one believes him. Even though his condition prevented a normal life, this was precisely the routine he had always longed for. However, a digital clock on the table reads 17:26, and time is running out. Tokiya realizes prison day starts at 6 in the evening, meaning he only has 34 minutes of freedom. His consciousness will be transferred, and if he loses in the game, his real-world body will fall into a permanent coma. Knowing that newbies start in E-rank dungeons, he scrambles to write down every strategy he can remember. Aware the dungeons are simple if you know the rules, he declares he'll finish writing everything in just 10 minutes. Tokiya needs to write in a way his mother can understand to boost her chances, and also to help his friend Kita. His mother then advises him not to overdo it and mentions she's just stepping out to take out the trash. Watching her leave, he reflects that unlike his father, his mother never once abandoned him. He recalls how his father squandered the family's money and simply left them behind. His mother raised him alone through countless hardships, and he only now understands that the most precious things were always by his side. Abruptly, his room door swings open and someone enters. It was his friend Kita carrying his favorite snacks. The protagonist remarks that it's been a long time. His friend is confused since they saw each other just 3 days ago. It's revealed this is his childhood friend, Jaegonu Chikita. Kita was the only one who defended him as a child, when others treated him poorly because of his condition. However, in his past life, his friend was lost trying to help him, and our hero vows not to let that tragedy repeat itself. Back in the present, his curious friend asks what he's writing. Tokiya replies that it's a strategy guide. His friend questions if he should be playing games as it might worsen his condition, but the young man insists he must do this. Kita finally understands, thinking it must be an incredible game for him to be so determined to play. The protagonist hands him the notebooks, instructing him to read one and give the other to his mother, leaving his friend baffled. He urges Kita to read and memorize as much as possible, promising it will definitely be useful later. Although finding his friend's behavior odd, the young man agrees and takes the notebooks. Tokiya resolves that to protect those he loves, he must clear the dungeons, collect the cards, and become the strongest. The narrator explains that defeating monsters yields cards of various types like weapons, items, and skills that grant powers. Only 15 S-rank cards exist, boasting absolute effects that even the Dark Gods cannot interfere with. One of them being the time reversal card. Determined, Tokiya affirms that the S-rank cards will be his trump cards and that he will collect them all to defeat the Dark Gods. The clock on the table nears 6 o'clock, time for the game start is almost up. Glancing at the clock and a photo on the table, the protagonist knows prison day is about to begin. The photo shows him happy with his mother and Kita, but this peaceful life will be over in just 1 minute. A system notification then appears, congratulating him on being selected as a player in the first group. The picture on the table begins to glitch, with digital artifacts appearing over the family photo. In that moment, our hero's body starts to digitize as his soul is exported into the game. The system then initiates the process of importing his in-game memories into his mind. Now in the digital space, Tokiya vows that this time he will protect his loved ones and become the strongest once more. With a furious gaze, he promises to defeat the foolish god toying with their world. A welcome screen for Prison Day materializes, wishing the players an enjoyable game. The system loads the player data for Kurosu Tokiya and creates the first E-class dungeon, the Office of Demise. Next, the system attempts to delete his real-world memories but repeatedly fails. With the boss generation complete, the young man realizes everything is identical to his previous life. He finds himself in a dungeon that looks exactly like a real-world office. The protagonist knows some players have their memories wiped, but for some reason, his remain intact. Already knowing what's coming, he braces himself for the opening E-class dungeon. The dungeon is named the Office of Demise, and several people are at their desks, oblivious to the danger. To clear this low-level dungeon, one must defeat 3 bosses, each with different abilities. Without wasting a second, the protagonist commands the system to open his status panel, and a blue screen appears. With that, Kurosu Tokiya's status panel opens, revealing his player information. He notes that everything has been reset. Defeating the 3 bosses now is nearly impossible, so his priority is to raise his skills. The young man wonders about the unidentifiable blessing, and if it's connected to his memories from his past life. Regardless, he needs a skill card to defeat the stage, 1 boss, and strategizes his next move. Suddenly, an idea strikes the protagonist as he remembers something crucial about this dungeon. He recalls a hidden side quest. If he can get a skill card there, victory won't be so difficult. With 10 minutes left before the main mission starts, Tokiya rises, determined, knowing there's still time to act. Rushing through the office, he remembers the voice he's heard since childhood, noting it was clearer after he was reborn. The voices spoke of saving the Earth, insisting that to win, they needed to merge their powers with his to defeat the Dark God. Confused by this, he wonders if he can obtain a power separate from the S-rank cards. He then halts in front of the men's restroom door, his destination. Deciding to unravel the mystery of the voices later, he enters the restroom, focused on the side quest. Upon arriving, he confirms this is the spot and that his first task is to unlock the treasure chest. A system notification informs him he has reached the hidden location and the side quest is starting. A blue screen reveals the mission's name, the secret hidden in the men's restroom. Wasting no time, the protagonist kicks a stall door with force, yelling that he'll clear this at top speed. Inside the stall, a small blue horned creature is startled by the sudden intrusion. The system identifies the creature as the Cowardly Ogre, an urban legend perched atop the chest. The little monster tries to look menacing, puffing up and letting out a fierce growl to intimidate the young man. But with glowing red eyes, Tokiya yells at the ogre to get out of the way or else. The tiny monster shrinks back in fear from the protagonist's threat, looking as if it's about to cry. With a terrified shriek, the small blue creature scrambles and leaps away from the young man. A system notification pops up, informing him that the Cowardly Ogre has been defeated and he secured the chest. The hero muses that such a weak creature was guarding the treasure. It fled the moment he threatened it. But the system states that while the chest contains the reward, it can't be opened without a key. Unconcerned, the protagonist simply stumps hard, shattering the treasure chest. At this, the system merely announces that the player has successfully broken the treasure chest. He remarks that many are fooled by the display and miss this, but a newbie can easily claim the cards. The system then lists the acquired items: Vigor, Speed, and Power cards, all E-class. He holds the 3 basic skill cards, stating that with them, he can finally activate his player status. The young man then activates the cards, and his body is enveloped in a green aura as his skills level up. The system confirms his Speed, Power, and Vigor have increased to level 1 with a cap at level 5. With a confident smile, he notes the effect is minor but clear, and now he can take on the 3 bosses. His status panel updates, now showing his basic skills at level 1 alongside the unidentifiable blessing. Activating the panel with the cards makes him a formal player. Even at level 1, he is far beyond a normal human. To test his new strength, the protagonist punches the restroom wall, which cracks under the impact. The mirror also shatters into countless pieces, unable to withstand the force of the blow. He figures that with these stats and his past life experience, he should clear this dungeon with ease. But he knows that defeating the gods and protecting the world is still a distant goal. With that, he vows to use every tool at his disposal, including the power from the owner of that voice. Looking at the system screen, the protagonist says he needs to understand this unidentifiable blessing better. He then shouts at the system, asking if the owner of the voice gave him this strange blessing. With a smirk, he admits he was just kidding, as he didn't expect an answer anyway. Suddenly, a mysterious voice echoes in his mind, declaring that from now on, everything depends on him. In that instant, dark, sinister silhouettes begin to form around our hero in the restroom. The shadows then completely engulf him, pulling him into a dark and unknown space. Utterly confused, the young man finds himself floating in a void, unable to comprehend what's happening. The voice continues its message, stating they're always watching him from somewhere. He demands to know who they are, why they are helping him with this mysterious blessing, and what their motives are. The entity replies that first he must prove his worth, as their help was merely a whim. Back in the restroom, the voice warns him that the battle is about to begin and he must hurry. With a determined gaze, Tokiya affirms that he wants their power and will undoubtedly prove his strength. A system notification announces the countdown is over, the boss has been generated, and raid mode has begun. The screen welcomes them to Prison Day and announces that the challenge in the Office of Demise dungeon is starting. A warning appears: anyone not in position will fail the raid. The time limit is 59 seconds. The protagonist sprints, confident that with his speed card, he'll make it with time to spare. With only 18 seconds left, the tension mounts as he races through the office. However, 2 men are blocking the front door, shouting they don't have time for games. Annoyed, the hero thinks there are always a few fools who can't grasp the situation. As soon as the timer hits 0, the 2 players at the door are instantly eliminated. The other players are stunned by the scene, realizing this game is real and deadly. Tokiya just watches calmly, remarking that if you break the rules here, it's simply over. Suddenly, a red digital gate begins to close and everyone panics, unsure of what to do. A warning flashes: the boss will appear shortly, and the battle against the E-ranked monsters will commence. Amidst the chaos, the silhouettes of the first boss and its minions appear before them. The protagonist already knew this would happen and that to clear the dungeon, all bosses must fall. With that, the first boss materializes, looking like a janitor, and announces it's time to take out the trash. The system displays the stats of the E-rank scavenger boss, wielding an iron broom and a sharp dustpan. Its minions are the cleaner's E-rank monsters with far more basic stats and weapons than the boss. One of the players scoffs at the monsters, saying a mere E-rank is nothing to worry about. A huge man agrees, boasting he'll take down those weaklings with just a few good punches. Tokyo warns everyone to stay calm, as their strength defies common sense, and they shouldn't be arrogant. He knows that even at level 1, these monsters are beyond what a civilian can handle. Brute force is a death sentence. The large man gets angry and tells the protagonist to shut up, since he barely made it in time and has no right to talk. With a wicked grin, he declares he'll strike first and shoot to the top of the elimination rankings. The man is already dreaming of becoming a billionaire with cars, mansions, and women. High risk, high reward. He then charges forward, yelling for the monster to become just another stepping stone to his vast fortune. However, the boss parries the attack with its iron broom, which glows with an intense green energy. The brute is sent flying, landing hard on the ground and leaving the other players terrified. The boss then announces that the cleaning shift has started, and its minions advance on the horrified players. The boss laughs, declaring that all the trash here needs to be sanitized, while players scream for help. But amidst this chaos, our hero remains composed, preparing to spring into action. He lunges at one of the monsters, landing a powerful punch that sends it flying back with force. Upon impact, the minion hits the ground and dissolves in a green light, signaling its defeat. The young man states that to clear the game, the boss must be defeated, he needs to get stronger and claim an S-rank card. The other players are stunned to see someone fighting even after the brawny man was taken down. One of the minions gets back up, insisting it must continue cleaning the trash, proving it's not done yet. Wielding a broom, the protagonist attacks the monster with a powerful, energy-infused vertical strike. The minion dissolves into light particles, and a red card appears in its place as a reward. He explains that the reward notification only appears if you secure the final blow, otherwise, you have to finish the job. The players are dumbfounded, wondering who he is, since he's clearly stronger than the muscular guy from before. The young man muses that even at a low level, defeating these monsters could yield one of 3 cards. Without delay, the protagonist decides to activate the power card he just acquired in battle. The system confirms that his power has increased from level 1 to level 2 with the card's activation. Immediately after, another of the boss's minions appears, ready to attack our hero with its iron broom. He knows that after awakening, even a single level difference is enough to overwhelm an opponent. The monster charges forward with its broom, attempting to strike our protagonist. But with a smirk, the hero declares the monster isn't even worth his precious time. With a single swift and precise blow, he defeats the minion, which vanishes into light before him. He obtains another power card, raising his power level to 3 and making him even stronger. Suddenly, the young man senses an attack from behind and spins around to defend himself. With a swift and precise motion, he uses his iron broom to counterattack and defeat the creature. Tokiya then says with an air of superiority that cheap shots don't work on him. A system notification confirms he has defeated another cleaner and obtained an E-rank speed card. He smiles, holding the new green card, noting that speed is another crucial attribute for victory. The boss and its remaining minions turn to the young man, calling him filthy, disgusting trash. The narrator explains that due to the aggression value, players with many takedowns are targeted more heavily, increasing the difficulty. The hero knows the boss's skill boosts its power, so he must fight alone and take them down one by one. With that, the boss and its last 2 minions charge at our protagonist with everything they have. Tokiya yells to the other players, telling them to throw things at the monsters to buy him time for a counterattack. He thinks that if there's anyone here with potential, he can help them clear the dungeon, allowing more people to survive. However, the other players are terrified, saying they'll be eliminated if they attack the monsters. Seeing their cowardice, the protagonist realizes he'll have to create his own opening. The boss charges forward, broom raised, shouting trash as it prepares to strike. But the young man hurls a keyboard at the monster, which blocks the attack and creates a small window of opportunity. The other players are surprised by his move and the hero lets out a ho, seeing that it worked. One of the players then yells at the others that the young man is fighting for them and they need to help. But the man in the suit holds him back, shouting that normal people like them can't fight monsters. The boss becomes enraged at the players, declaring it will sanitize all these piles of trash. With that, the monster charges toward the other players, who scream in terror at its approach. A player screams in desperation, begging for someone to do something as the monster closes in. But Tokiya acts swiftly, taking down the 2 remaining minions at once and saving the young man. With a confident smile, he thinks that at his current stats, he can end this in a second. Only the boss remains. The system rewards him with another speed card and a power card for defeating the minions. The boss then turns to another player, shouting that it needs to sanitize the trash, while the man begs for help. Then, the protagonist appears behind the monster and coldly states that the only trash here is him. With a single, precise, and powerful blow, he finishes off the boss, which collapses with no chance to retaliate. The system congratulates player Kurosu Tokiya for successfully defeating the first stage boss. With this, the contribution ranking is unlocked, and the young man is awarded prizes for defeating the boss. With 700 points, he takes first place and learns that the leaders receive the number 1 S-rank card. He reflects that he didn't obtain this card in his past life and wonders about its power. He notices the other players still haven't defeated any monsters, but knows that staying on top will be a challenge. It's explained that the ranking includes every player invited to the first dungeon worldwide. The arrival of Prison Day occurred simultaneously across the globe, affecting countless people at once. He recalls that in his previous life, there were many powerful individuals with unique and incredible abilities. Since the rewards and rankings change with each dungeon, he must always clear them with a perfect score. Now stronger than ever, he vows to defeat the Dark God, and to do so, he needs the number 1 card. The system then displays his rewards: 2 Vigor cards and 2 special cards, Purity and Iron Seed. He's surprised by the Iron Seed, remarking that he got lucky, as it can create a weapon based on his aura. The Iron Seed card creates a dedicated iron weapon and offers a chance to obtain a special one. He thinks the best possible weapons would be a sword or a katana and hopes for good luck. The protagonist then turns to the man with glasses who helped him earlier, surprising him. Tokiya notes that the man assisted him in a dangerous situation, a quality necessary for a good player. The hero thanks him for distracting the boss, but the man humbly says he was just trying to save himself. Because of this, he offers the man some cards, explaining they can awaken his powers and help him. But the man with glasses feels awkward and refuses, insisting the protagonist should be the one to use them. Tokiya insists, telling him not to be shy since he helped and deserves the reward. He then demonstrates how to use the cards, thinking he needs to boost his own attributes for stage 2. Without wasting another moment, our hero activates his own cards to prepare for the next challenge. His power and speed stats rise to level 4, and the man with glasses finally understands the process. Adachi then activates his cards and feels his body become lighter, experiencing a level up for the first time. His status window appears, revealing his name Adachi Fumihiko and his new basic attributes. He's shocked to see he gained experience points without directly defeating a monster. Tokiya explains that simply contributing to a fight grants experience, and leveling up also raises attributes. Adachi then asks for our hero's level, and he replies he's already at level 4, leaving the man stunned. Next, we see Tokiya's updated status panel, showing he has already reached level 4 across the board. He then takes the Iron Seed, excited to see what weapon his aura will generate. The seed begins to transform in his hand, releasing an intense and powerful blue energy. The sword is a growth-type weapon that absorbs an opponent's HP and gains a new skill every 10 levels. With a smile, he remarks that it's not bad at all, and being a rare weapon, it could rival a C rank 1. Adachi is dumbfounded, saying that's beyond amazing and just what you'd expect from the one who defeated the monster. The protagonist thinks the new weapon is nowhere near what he used in his past life, but admits it has potential. A system notification congratulates everyone for successfully clearing the first stage of the dungeon. Immediately after, stage 2 is announced, and all players must proceed to the boss's refectory. The young man realizes everything is unfolding exactly as it did in his past life, which calms his nerves. He then invites Adachi to join him, and the man with glasses accepts without hesitation. Tokiya explains he wants an intelligent companion for the future, and Adachi is an excellent choice. Thrilled by the opportunity, the man accepts, and the protagonist urges them to head to the next location. The other players then begin to beg to be taken along, promising rewards and favors. One player argues that if he's so skilled, he should help others and take everyone with him. With his eyes glowing red with fury, the protagonist threatens to crush the man if he doesn't move. The players are utterly terrified by the threat and our hero's intimidating aura. Without another word, he and Adachi walk past the other players, who part ways in fear. One of the players comments on his terrifying gaze and how that stare sent a chill down his spine. Adachi asks if he's really leaving the others behind, but the protagonist says they would only slow him down. He coldly states he has no duty to save everyone and that he is no saint. Adachi then promises to do his best not to be a burden, and Tokiya warns him about the next boss. The man with glasses is intrigued by the mention of mental corruption and asks if it's a debuff from the monster. They arrive at the boss's refectory, where the system instructs them to sit to participate in stage 2. Upon entering, the delicious aroma of food fills the air, and a red monster appears before them. Adachi lets out a startled scream as the bright red monster suddenly materializes in front of him. Tokiya warns him to sit down quickly, or he'll be eliminated like the others who failed to follow the rules. They take their seats, and the man with glasses remarks that since it's close to stage 1, no one should be late. But the protagonist counters that if they make the wrong choice, they won't arrive in time. Meanwhile, the other players are running desperately down the hall, regretting not having left sooner. The countdown hits just 10 seconds and the tension builds for the late players. They finally reach the refectory and scramble to find a place to sit. The timer then hits 0 and the system announces the end of the countdown for stage 2. One of the last players to arrive stands at the door, relieved, thinking he's safe. But suddenly, he senses a terrifying presence right behind him, and his eyes widen in fear. The stage boss strikes him from behind, declaring his time is up and he's out of the game. The other players are shocked, realizing the red cook is the stage boss. With a cart full of bizarre food, the boss orders all players to eat. Adachi grimaces in disgust as the boss serves a disgusting green slime onto his plate. The meal appears to be made from the monsters of the previous stage, making it even more grotesque. The reflection in Adachi's glasses reveals his sheer terror and revulsion at the situation. He then realizes that the substance in the food is one of the monsters from before and is horrified. The system warns that looking at the food will cause mental corruption, lowering their stats. Adachi worries that with reduced attributes, clearing the dungeon will be much more difficult. But Tokiya stares at the full meal and calmly tells his friend that's not all. A system notification declares the banquet from the underworld has been served, leaving leftovers will result in retaliation from the monster. With 7 minutes remaining, a warning states that if a player's mental value drops to 0, they will be disqualified. Adachi panics. If they don't eat, they'll be eliminated, but he can't imagine swallowing that stuff. With a confident smirk, Tokiya agrees it's tougher than stage 1, but he knows the way to clear it. His friend offers to help, but the hero tells him to hang on and use the purity card if necessary. The mental corruption intensifies, and the system informs them that the player's mental power is steadily decreasing. A female player says just looking at the disgusting food makes her want to be sick. The protagonist knows that with skills reduced by corruption, defeating the 4 monsters is impossible. The standard strategy is to eat the banquet and distract the monsters, but that only yields minimal points in rewards. Suddenly, the system announces his unknown blessing has made him immune to mental attacks, which shocks him. With a confident smile, the young man declares they can now clear it using the hidden high difficulty rule. He's thrilled, as they can now aim for high score rewards to protect his ranking. One of the players rebels, throwing his plate to the ground and shouting that he won't eat that filth. Adachi notes the man's mental state hasn't collapsed, and Toki explains that the mind deteriorates faster. The player completely snaps, stomping on the disgusting food on the floor while laughing and yelling that he absolutely will not eat it. In that instant, the boss appears and lands a powerful blow on the player, who refused the food. The monster warns that if he doesn't eat, he'll be eliminated, but the fallen man still refuses to comply. The boss then grabs the player's face, its hand glowing with an intense red energy. The man is dragged away by the monster, still laughing hysterically and refusing to eat the slime. The kitchen door slams shut, taking the disobedient player and the boss with it. One of the players says if they don't eat, they'll be removed, but there's no way to stomach that food. A system alert shows that no player has finished the banquet, and everyone's mental fortitude is now at 60%. The protagonist explains that the hidden rule for clearing this stage involves starting on easy and then switching to hard. He then stands and throws his plate to the floor, shouting that it's impossible to eat that stuff. The first condition is to draw the monster's attention to switch the game to hard mode, which he has just done. The system warns that the cook monster has locked on him as a target, raising his elimination risk to 80%. The boss appears behind him, threatening to put his brain in a pan and cook it. The second condition is to defeat an enemy to focus the other monster's aggro on him, and that's his next move. With his sword drawn, he charges one of the monsters, attacking it with a quick, precise strike. He follows up with a spinning attack, defeating the monster in a single, decisive blow. A notification confirms the Malice Sprite has been defeated, rewarding him with 2 power cards and 1 vigor card. With that, stage 2 officially begins, and his power stat is updated to level 5. Since an enemy was defeated, the aggro of the other 3 skyrockets to 100%, activating hard mode. This is the hidden high difficulty rule, First Strike, which causes all monsters to focus on him. The 3 remaining monsters enter a rage mode, their eyes glowing red, ready to attack. By taking one down, he successfully draws the attention of the others, protecting the other players. He knows that with all the aggro concentrated on him, the chance of elimination is much higher, so he must be careful. Therefore, he needs to maintain distance and conserve his strength for the final boss battle. As the sole target, he can't use distractions and must fight with everything he's got. One of the monsters threatens him, saying he won't escape and will be turned into minced meat. The butcher lunges with its cleaver, but the protagonist parries the blow with his new blue sword. Gritting his teeth, he manages to hold back the monster's attack, which seems surprised by his strength. The monster can't believe the young man stopped its blade and prepares to use a new technique. It activates its instant knife handling skill, unleashing a flurry of strikes at the hero. But with a smirk, the protagonist thinks, "I've got you," having already devised a plan to win. He knows he lacks enough cards and must defeat the minions to unlock his sword's ability. With that, he dodges the attacks and begins to counter the monsters with quick, precise strikes. The monster taunts him, asking if he can keep up with its speed, boasting it's the fastest of the cooks. It declares the young man will lose and questions if his allies can defeat a cursed sword like its own. The hero continues to fight masterfully, landing several hits on all 3 monsters at once. His sword begins to glow as he successfully blocks one of the monster's attacks. One of the creatures shouts in surprise as a projectile is fired from our protagonist's sword. The monster wonders how their skills can be identical and how this can be so unfair. The sword's exclusive skill unlocks, allowing him to use the powerful time splitter cut. The monster then realizes the young man's attacks were charging his skill points. Desperate, it screams for the others to run, realizing it was all a well-planned trap. But with a wicked smile, the protagonist says it's too late and activates his new skill. With a single powerful slash of red energy, he strikes all 3 monsters at once. The system confirms that the butcher, the gastronome, and the chopper have all been defeated. With victory secured, he remarks that the most obvious traps are often the most real and collects his rewards. Adachi is relieved, saying his hands are sweating, but the protagonist calculated everything perfectly. A system warning states the hidden rule has been activated. The stage boss is now enraged, boosting its abilities. Adachi panics, seeing the boss's abilities have increased due to the hidden rule. Suddenly, the entire refectory begins to tremble with a sinister red energy, heralding the boss's arrival. The protagonist warns everyone that the boss is stronger now. If they don't defeat it, they will all be eliminated. The hidden rule forces a direct confrontation but increases the rewards by 30% in exchange. With a determined look, the hero declares his objective in this world is to claim the best rewards. The kitchen door explodes and the boss appears, its hands glowing with red energy. Furious, it roars, demanding to know who eliminated its precious cooks, as its stats are revealed. Adachi is terrified by the boss's power, wondering if they can possibly win this fight. Without hesitation, the protagonist uses all his available cards, preparing for the final showdown. He knows he can't hold back against the enhanced boss and unleashes his full power. 4 skill cards are used at once, maxing out his power, speed, and vigor stats. Since he rank cards cap at level 5, the remaining speed cards are now useless. He tosses the extra cards to Adachi, telling him to use them immediately to help in the fight. The man with glasses activates the speed cards he received from our protagonist, strengthening himself. His speed and vigor stats increase, and he realizes the hero gave him the cards to help him survive. The boss bellows furiously, once again demanding to know who was responsible for taking out its cooks. The other players are paralyzed by the monster's roar, losing their will to resist its power. But Adachi realizes he feels no fear. The card's power is shielding him from the boss's roar. The boss threatens the players, saying it will crush their heads if they don't reveal who took out its cooks. Suddenly, something slices through the air at high speed towards the monster, just as it's about to attack. It was the protagonist, who materializes and blocks the boss's attack with his sword, saving the others. The monster is shocked that its attack was stopped by a mere player and glares at him with rage. Tokiya then takes the blame, defiantly stating he was the one who eliminated the cooks. The boss vows to make him pay in the most miserable way possible, saying it will take his brain after the others. But the hero cuts it off with a smirk, retorting that he'll be cutting its neck before that happens. The monster laughs, challenging him to try as it charges with its cleaver, ready for an all-out assault. The impact of their clash creates a powerful shockwave that cracks the refectory floor. Adachi shouts the protagonist's name in concern as he sees him thrown back by the boss's sheer force. But the young man gets up, reassuring his anxious friend that he's fine. He muses that it's been a long time since he heard someone call him that way, and his mind drifts to the past. In his previous life, his friends called him by that name, but they were all lost along the journey. He then remembers with sorrow how his companions fell, leaving him all alone. With a somber expression, he wonders why he was the only one to survive amidst so much tragedy. The boss charges again, yelling it will slice him to pieces and preparing for another powerful attack. The protagonist thinks that he didn't understand it back then, but now he knows what must be done. He faces the monster with determination, shouting for it to prepare for the end with a deadly glare. The two then clash their weapons once more, the impact of their battle echoing throughout the refectory. The protagonist's sword begins to glow with an intense red energy as he readies his final attack. The boss is taken aback by the speed of the young man's assault, wondering if he was holding back before. Using his time splitter cut ability, the protagonist unleashes a barrage of red slashes. He reflects that he survived his past life because he was courageous and never hesitated. With a cry of determination, he declares that more than anything, he always wanted to win and be the best. He vows that nothing will stop him from achieving victory, but it's not just about winning. The protagonist states he wants to protect everyone's lives and preserve a normal, peaceful world. The system announces the second stage boss has been defeated, and the reward is increased by 30%. His rewards include power, vigor, and speed cards along with a special memory card. He also receives a surprise boss buff, which increases one ability by 3 levels for 10 minutes. The hero realizes that without triggering the hidden rule, he wouldn't have earned the extra contribution points. He then opens the ranking screen to check his current score and the status of other players. With 1,700 points, he remains in first place and sees the same top players from his past life. He knows they are all talented and will undoubtedly become key players in the future. The dark gods won't leave them be, they will prepare cruel stages where many strong players were sacrificed. But in this life, he plans to acquire the S-rank card that can resist them and eagerly awaits their reunion. He then gazes at the images of his former rivals, bracing himself for the challenges to come. A system notification congratulates everyone for clearing the second stage and announces the start of the final stage. The remaining time is just under 5 minutes, and all players must proceed to the underground lobby. With a serious expression, the protagonist prepares himself. The final, most challenging stage is about to begin. He then calls out to his friend Adachi, who responds promptly, ready to follow his lead. Adachi timidly follows the protagonist, feeling somewhat intimidated by his powerful presence. He then gets the young man's attention and offers him a tissue, which leaves the hero a bit confused. His friend holds out the tissue, approaching to offer the small gesture of kindness. Tokiya asks if it's a napkin, and Adachi explains he found it on a table and thought he could wipe his face. With an awkward smile, he adds that if he were more useful, his new friend's burden would be lighter. The protagonist is touched by the gesture, thinking that there truly are many good people in the world. He reassures him that's not true and that he's been a great help, which moves Adachi. Suddenly, several blue creatures appear in the hallway, announcing that the 2 previous stages have been breached. With a wicked smile, the monster tells everyone not to hold back and to devour everything in their path. The countdown to reach the lobby begins, giving them just over 4 minutes to get there. Adachi asks if the trick to beating the boss was his speed and if having high stats guarantees victory. The protagonist explains that it's not that simple, as it also depends on individual skill. His friend then worries, admitting he's bad at sports and couldn't dodge attacks even with level 5 speed. Adachi looks at him with admiration, thinking he must have undergone special training to be so strong. They stop at the top of a staircase, and the hero prepares to give his friend the next set of instructions. He tells Adachi to wait there and warn anyone who arrives not to run, which confuses the young man. Toki explains it's a crucial hidden rule: if they are judged for fleeing, they won't be able to leave. Adachi asks what's wrong, but the protagonist doesn't answer and simply turns to descend. He says that since his friend didn't defeat the boss, it would be too dangerous for him to come down. Adachi understands and promises to warn everyone with a salute, making Tokiya think his friend is a good guy. He knows that with help, he can easily unlock the hidden rule, but doing it alone will be tough. Tokiya is aware that the third stage contains 10 level 5 guards and 1 level 7 boss. It's a much harder stage than the second, with formidable guards and an even stronger leader. In his past life, the only way to clear was by cooperating and fighting the enemies as a team. Suddenly, he hears someone call his name from the top of the stairs and turns to see who it is. A smirk crosses his face as he realizes the person he's been waiting for has finally arrived. In his past life, this person also discovered the hidden rule, and it was the key to their group's victory. His name is Konomi Yuya, and in the previous timeline, he stood out even before our protagonist. Adachi tries to convey the don't run message, but Yuya misinterprets it as mockery. Tokiya steps in, clarifying that it's not a joke but a warning from a teammate. Yuya acknowledges his impressive performance in the second stage, admitting he didn't need any help. But now that he understands the situation, he wants to challenge the hero to prove who is the strongest. He lunges to attack, but the protagonist warns him to focus on defeating the next boss first. The hero states he's facing the wrong enemy and that they should join forces to win. With a single swift and precise blow, he strikes Yuya in the chest, sending him flying backward. The young man is shocked by Tokiya's superhuman strength, unable to believe what just happened. He wonders if it's a game-induced boost or some kind of special ability he's unaware of. The protagonist then offers Yuya 3 cards, inviting him to join the battle. With a suspicious gaze, the young man asks what he means by "join you," and glares at him. The hero confirms, adding that if he joins him, the 3 power cards are his. The protagonist then flicks a memory card at Yuya, which hits him squarely on the forehead. The green card glows brightly, beginning to restore the young man's memories and leaving him stunned by the sensation. Tokiya knows that erasing memories hinders unity without them. There's no reason to protect anything. He's aware that the Dark God understands human nature, and this is its greatest weapon against them. The memory awakens Yuya's recollections, and a green aura completely envelopes him. The hero says he knows who Yuya cares about and asks if he'll accept his proposal now. Yuya remembers his younger brother and realizes he must survive to see him again. He then asks if, by joining the protagonist, they are guaranteed to clear the dungeon. With a confident smile, Takia assures him they will and tosses him the 3 power cards. Yuya promises not to forget this favor and activates the cards, boosting his power stats. Tokia announces he'll go on ahead, as there are still enemies to be defeated along the way. He then activates his own power cards and the surprise boss buff to prepare himself. The hero knows that even at level 7, the next boss will be a challenge, and he needs more power. Fortunately, the buff increases his power by 3 levels, making him significantly stronger for the battle. With a smirk, he thanks the boss for the assist and notes his power has risen another level. Suddenly, several blue monsters appear before them, ready for the stage's final combat. The monsters mock the two, calling them scrawny and claiming they won't withstand their powerful attacks. For the first time, Yuya feels the monsters' intimidating presence and is slightly unnerved. He then wonders if the 2 of them alone can truly defeat these powerful creatures. But the protagonist reassures him, stating the 2 of them are more than enough to win. The system displays the player's stats, with Toki at power level 11 and Yuya at level 2. With his power augmented, the protagonist declares that he is now the stage boss and prepares to attack. He charges at the monsters with his sword drawn, but Yuya shouts for him to wait and not to rush in. The young man thinks the hero's actions are suicidal and doesn't understand why he's taking such a risk. Yuya recalls his underground fights, where he always faced strangers in dangerous combat. He knows the best strategy in these situations is to carefully analyze one's opponent. With a confident smile, his opponent charges forward, aiming a powerful and precise punch. He closely observes the enemy's movements, preparing to counterattack and defend. With a swift motion, he dodges the blow and lands a powerful punch that knocks his opponent down instantly. But Tokia warns him not to advance blindly, or he'll be defeated by the blue monsters. One of the guards calls him a weakling and threatens him with its electric baton as its stats are revealed. The monster then lunges with a preemptive strike, attempting to hit the protagonist with its baton. With his sword ready, he prepares to counterattack, delivering a powerful and precise blow. Yuya is impressed by the young man's speed and power, wondering if he was holding back before. The guard senses something is wrong with him and orders the others to use their skills and attack as a group. With 56 seconds remaining, a system alert warns all players to enter the underground lobby. The 2 then face each other in silence, bracing for the final combat that is about to begin. Yuya and Tokia exchange glances, preparing for the battle awaiting them in the underground lobby. He knows that, as a hidden rule, the enemies will attack the moment they step into the lobby, even during the countdown. With his sword glowing blue, he attacks the guards with a powerful, spinning strike. With 49 seconds left, he thinks he needs to defeat as many monsters as possible to protect everyone. Adachi tries to calm the other players, reassuring them they have plenty of time to reach the lobby. The protagonist realizes his friend has understood the plan and is pleased with his quick thinking. With 21 seconds remaining, Adachi instructs everyone to enter the underground lobby in an orderly manner. He understands the hero's intention is to stall until the last second, preventing anyone from entering the lobby prematurely. The countdown reaches just 12 seconds, and the tension mounts for the players who have yet to enter. Yuya argues the enemies aren't that strong, and that they should help the protagonist in the battle. But Tokia shouts at him to stay back and not interfere in the fight against the blue guards. The monsters remark that the young man is too strong, and that they need to recharge by targeting the other players. The hero then gets Yuya's attention, declaring it's now his turn to join the fight. One of the guards charges at the players, but Yuya steps in front to shield them from the attack. With a roar of anger, he tries to block the monster's blow but is sent flying backward. He then yells at the monster not to dare touch the others, realizing there's a reason the hero is protecting them. Yuya attempts to strike the guard with his fists but finds his blows are causing no damage. He then wonders how the protagonist is managing to fight against such powerful monsters. Adachi tells everyone to be quiet to avoid attracting the monsters, adding that the hero will handle it. The other players agree, deciding the only thing they can do now is to trust them. They then hope that the 2 of them can hold their ground and not fall to the blue monsters. The protagonist realizes his sword skill points have fully accumulated. One of the guards then orders the other monsters to attack all at once and end the fight. With a confident look, the protagonist says he was thinking the exact same thing as the monsters. He then unleashes his time splitter cut, striking all the guards at once with his powerful skill. Adachi and the others are in awe, remarking how incredible it is to have someone so strong on their side. Meanwhile, Yuya struggles to fight a single guard, wondering how the hero is so overwhelmingly powerful. Tokia then faces the last standing guard, warning with a cold gaze that he's next. But this guard is the final level 7 boss, and it stares back at the young man with a psychopathic grin. The monster says it takes pleasure in finishing off guys like the protagonist and readies itself for battle. The other players are terrified by the boss's level, 10 power, and begin to doubt their chances of victory. The hero charges forward, recalling that in his past life this boss took down many people in a long, drawn-out fight. With his sword, he unleashes a powerful slash of red energy toward the enemy. But he thinks that this time, he alone will be more than enough to win. The boss lets out a maniacal laugh and manages to block our protagonist's powerful attack. Unfazed, Tokia presses forward with determination to continue the combat. He uses his skill again, delivering a torrent of red slashes upon the giant monster. Under the barrage of blows, the final boss is completely vanquished, dissolving into light. The system then displays the young man's status screen, revealing he is leveled up to 8. He realizes that by defeating the weaker monsters, he obtained cards that significantly boosted his power. The protagonist muses that the best part of fighting alone is claiming all the XP and cards for himself. Adachi and the others are in shock at his inhuman strength, vowing to follow him forever. Seeing only one monster remains, Yuya charges, yelling he'll finish it with a single punch. But the monster furiously retorts that Yuya is the one who's in for a bad time. However, before the redhead can attack, the protagonist appears and slices the guard in half with one blow. Yuya collapses to the ground, stunned, unable to believe he instantly defeated the monster he struggled so much against. A system notification congratulates everyone for clearing the dungeon and displays the ranking, with Tokiya at 99%. With a confident expression, the hero awaits the reward calculation, wondering what bonus he'll receive. The screen reveals that the survival reward allows them to take everything back to the real world. The other players are ecstatic to see they will also receive rewards for their efforts. The protagonist thinks that clearing the dungeon grants a basic prize that aids survival, but there's a catch. In his previous life, stronger individuals began to use their powers for evil in the real world. Therefore, this time, he decides he must establish rules to manage the players as soon as possible. To do so, he needs support, and he knows his top ranking will attract some powerful figures. The overall contribution ranking screen places him firmly in first, with a 3,000-point lead. He sees himself as the undisputed leader. To everyone else, he's the one who dictates the rules of the game. At that moment, all players receive their abilities, feeling their bodies grow stronger and lighter. Adachi is also thrilled to see his new attributes, even if they are all at level 1. Yuya also checks his panel, feeling much stronger with his stats now at level 2. As for the protagonist, he examines his status and sees his power has reached an impressive level 15. The system then announces that contribution rewards will be generated based on each person's percentage. The two young men wonder if they'll receive anything with such a low contribution, regretting not fighting harder. Tokiya is also unsure what he'll get, as his contribution in his past life wasn't nearly this high. Adachi is pleased because with his new power card, he can increase his ability score again. Meanwhile, Yuya boasts about getting 2 cards, saying his contribution was incredible. They then look towards the protagonist, wondering what kind of reward he will receive. With a smile, the hero says this is all new to him as he receives 3 brilliant cards. His rewards are 1 card that elevates stats to level 10, another that allows a class change, and a third that summons allies. He's thrilled, realizing he can now boost his skills and gather allies simultaneously, feeling incredibly lucky. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble and the other players panic, not understanding what's happening. They realize the dungeon is collapsing and wonder if they can finally return to reality. The protagonist confirms that upon clearing a dungeon, they can return to the real world for a short time. But he warns them that the world has changed and the creator of this deadly game is trying to destroy everything. The others are shocked, wondering who in the world would do something so terrible. Tokiya then tells them he's counting on everyone to give their all in the next dungeon that appears. He encourages them to gain power to defeat the villain who imprisoned them and to protect the world. Adachi is confused by the word protect and doesn't quite grasp the hero's speech. Yuya, however, just eyes him with suspicion, thinking the protagonist is making some very bold claims. A system notification then announces that for placing first, the young man has earned a special S-rank card. A shadowy entity materializes, stating that if he proves capable, it will grant him the power of a god. Suddenly, the protagonist awakens back in his hospital bed, realizing he has returned to the real world. He sighs, hoping the others will believe him, as he needs more power to save the world. At that moment, a nurse rushes into the room, shouting for the doctor that the patient has finally awakened. The doctor confirms that he is completely lucid and his vital signs are all normal. But he reveals that hundreds of thousands of people have fallen into a coma just like him over the past 3 days. The doctor notes that the young man was the first to wake up and asks if he knows the cause of the mass coma. However, Tokiya ignores the question and, with a serious gaze, asks the doctor where his mother is. The man leads him to her room, explaining that she also fell into a coma and has not yet awakened. With a professional tone, he states that in medical terms, the protagonist's mother is in a vegetative state. The hero then realizes that just as in his past life, his mother was also chosen as a player. He knows that not all players are sent at once, and that those who fail end up in this condition. Looking at his mother, he remembers that those chosen for the game simply cannot return. At that, he touches the golden card in his pocket, reflecting that his greatest wish is about to be fulfilled. His one wish was for his mother to live in peace, free from any more suffering. He then reveals that he holds the special S-rank card number 1 named Free. With it, he can prevent someone from being chosen for the game and also gain a special ability. Resolved, he decides now is the time to use the card and liberate his beloved mother from this deadly game. The doctor is blinded by the intense golden light, wondering what on earth is happening. Shocked by the scene, the doctor adjusts his glasses, trying to comprehend the phenomenon he's witnessing. With his eyes wide in astonishment, he stammers that he simply can't believe it. His mother then awakens, confused, asking where she is and calling for her son and the doctor. Without a second thought, the young man rushes to embrace his mother with all his might, completely overwhelmed with emotion. With a gentle smile, he tells her that from this day forward, she no longer has to fight and suffer. The doctor is stunned by the scene, wondering if what he just witnessed was a miracle. Meanwhile, the world contribution ranking shows Kurosu Tokiya's name isolated in first place. Because of this, several mysterious figures decide they must recruit the world's #1 player. They fear that with such power, the young man could become the new ruler of the world. Back at the hospital, his mother recounts a strange dream about a terrifying amusement park. The protagonist listens with a smile, realizing she ended up in a deadly park-themed dungeon. She continues, saying a monster almost attacked her, but something happened at that very moment. According to her, everything suddenly went dark, and she lost consciousness right there. When she awoke, the first thing she saw was her son's face, and she asks if it wasn't a bizarre dream. With a gentle smile, the young man thinks that, unfortunately, what she experienced was no dream. Suddenly, Kita's voice echoes in the room, and the hero realizes he also managed to clear the dungeon. His friend bursts in, proclaiming he came to the rescue and felt like a manga protagonist. He says strong people helped him clear it, and the mother asks if he also had a strange dream. The protagonist wears a bored expression, thinking his friend has the same old energy. He then asks his mother to rest, saying he's going to talk with Kita outside for a moment. Out in the hallway, his friend insists it's no joke and that the weird game even had a name. Tokia cuts him off, stating the game's name is Present Day, which leaves Kita in shock. The hero then tells him to check the contribution ranking to prove it's all real. Utterly confused, his friend just scratches his head, wondering what this ranking thing is. Just then, a blue system screen materializes before him, leaving him completely speechless. With his eyes wide in amazement, his friend stammers as he sees the name of the #1 player. The protagonist then confirms with a smirk that what he's seeing is the absolute truth. The system screen shows that first place in the ranking belongs to Kurosu Tokia, with 3,000 points. With a confident look, the hero declares that he himself is the top-ranked player and faces his friend. Kita is stunned, unable to believe his friend is #1 in that game. Tokia then reveals his class change card, saying the information will come to him. Without wasting time, he activates the card, and a powerful golden aura envelopes him in the hallway. The system announces that the class change has been initiated and a random profession will be selected. The young man explains that every class in the game is powerful, but they require leveling, and the cards are rare. He knows that classes are weak initially but possess infinite potential over time. One of the 3 supreme classes is the Messenger of the 4 Elements, who commands the powers of nature. The second is the descendant of the Black Flame Dragon, who transforms into a mighty, giant dragon. And the last is the Seeker of Time, who manipulates the timeline and wields powers of temporal travel. Amidst numerous data screens, the protagonist wonders which new class he will be assigned. A screen appears in a brilliant flash of light, revealing the name of his new class, Master of Principles. The hero is completely floored. Even in his past life, he had never heard of this class. The screen then shows that his new class has a passive ability resonance with tools. The class's skill tree is revealed, and the young man notices many unknown levels. He's surprised, as normal classes only have 3 levels. This one will be incredibly difficult to level up. With an excited smile, he thinks that if he reaches the end, he'll gain unbelievable power. His friend remarks that he's apparently the first person in the world to achieve a class change in the game. Kita then becomes desperate, calling out the protagonist's name, unsure of what to do. The hero asks what's wrong, and his friend throws himself on the floor, begging for help. With a pleading expression, he begs his friend to carry him and help him get stronger. Suddenly, a nurse appears in the hallway and asks if she's interrupting something. The protagonist looks at her, remembering how much trouble he had with bills in his past life. She then informs him that the hospital payments are over a month late, and the money is needed. His friend offers his card to help, but the hero declines, saying he'll handle it. He reflects that in his past life, he managed this by working as a bodyguard using his physical strength. With determination, he says he relied too much on his mother, but now he will resolve things himself. The nurse excuses herself and steps away to take an important call. With a confused expression, she answers the phone, trying to process the information she's receiving. Shocked by the news, the woman stammers, asking if what she heard is really true. With a huge smile, she announces that someone has paid off all the hospital's debts at once. She then points to the protagonist's friend and says that even the bald guy's portion was covered. The young man gets annoyed by the nickname, clarifying he's not a patient and is just visiting his friend. The two stare at each other in silence, and the protagonist points toward room 226. At that moment, a blonde man and his 2 companions appear in the hallway and approach them. The man asks with an air of superiority where he can find Kurosu Tokia in this hospital. The protagonist and his friend are confused, wondering who these strange people are. The man asks if they are friends with Kurosu and requests they pass on an important message. With a smirk, the protagonist thinks that the major players of Prison Day have arrived early. His friend then asks what they want with Tokia, eyeing them suspiciously. Kita analyzes their attire and realizes they seem to be very important individuals. He then wonders if they've come for his friend because he's the world's #1 rank. His friend reflects on the money they paid, wondering how much a lifetime's worth of expenses would cost. The nurse then whispers to the protagonist that those were the people who paid the bills. The hero calmly replies that he's already aware, leaving the woman a bit confused by his reaction. Without missing a beat, the young man introduces himself to the group as Kurosu Tokia. The blonde man is impressed that he remains expressionless in their presence and that he's so young. The protagonist knows these people are influential in various fields and analyzes them carefully. The blonde man is Sumulsho, head of a major corporation and a rising star in politics. The one in the suit is Kadoichi, CEO of a tech company with strong ties to the military. The woman is Urara, president of Group X, which holds vast energy resources and global influence. The group's leader says it's an honor to meet him and prepares for a formal introduction. But the protagonist cuts him off, stating he already knows who they are and tells him to get to the point. The blonde man is taken aback by the young man's audacity, not expecting such an attitude. The man in the suit thinks that the world's #1 player is indeed as impressive as the rumors suggest. The woman smiles, thinking the hero is a far more interesting person than she had imagined. The woman then invites him to move to another location, as they have prepared a special room for their talk. But the protagonist declines the offer, telling them to talk right there in the hospital's waiting room. The 2 men exchange a brief glance, a silent acknowledgement that they understand the young man's message. The group's leader agrees, and they all head to the waiting room to begin their discussion. The woman smiles, thinking he's doing this to maintain the upper hand in negotiation. The nurse and his friend are shocked, unable to believe he could barely afford his bills just moments ago. The hero then calls his friend, asking him to bring the strategy guide he gave him earlier. Kita awkwardly scratches his head, asking if it's really necessary for him to fetch that guide. With a guilty expression, he confesses he thought it was a joke and threw the guide away. Desperate, his friend dashes down the hallway, saying he'll retrieve the guide right now. The protagonist is irritated, thinking this is why neither he nor his mother received any rewards. The woman then asks curiously about the strategy guide he mentioned. He calmly replies that it's the strategy guide for the game's beginner dungeons. The 3 are stunned, telling him to stop joking, as the game has barely started. With a smirk, he says whether it's true or not, his friend will soon find out. The nurse is startled by several men in suits standing at the door and asks who they are. The blonde man reads the guide and is shocked to see it describes the exact dungeon he experienced. The other two also confirm their dungeons are detailed within, down to the last particular. The protagonist's friend asks if it was all true, and he confirms it with a smile. Kita then laments missing a huge opportunity to get ahead and feels incredibly frustrated. The group's leader apologizes, admitting his power exceeds their imagination and they are not qualified. The protagonist crosses his arms and, with a smile, asks what else they have to say. The woman remarks that with such a guide, it's as if he can foresee everything that will happen in the game. With a smirk, he confirms that is precisely the case and that he knows everything. He reflects that in his past life, survivors posted the details online and he memorized it all. All that past effort is now paying off, serving as his trump card against the dark gods. He then leans forward and asks directly what they want from him now. The group of powerful individuals exchanges a look before answering his question. The three of them bow respectfully, asking the young man to become their advisor. The blonde man admits the feeling of walking a tightrope in the dungeon was truly terrifying. The man in the suit believes that with the hero's help, they won't have to face that situation again. The woman adds that they will be forced back into the game and don't want to fare poorly. Kita observes the entire negotiation in silence as his friend takes charge. Therefore, the group's leader declares with determination that they will accept any condition he imposes. With a casual air, the protagonist says he doesn't mind becoming their advisor. His friend's eyes sparkle with excitement, thinking his partner is incredibly cool. He then reflects that his friend's family is poor, and what they need most is money. The young man already imagines himself swimming in cash and going on spending sprees with his best friend. But the protagonist interrupts him, stating he has 3 conditions for accepting their offer. His colleague swells with pride, thinking that, as expected, his friend is a true master negotiator. The group's leader says that even 30 or 300 conditions would be fine, but the hero surprises him. His friend is shocked, lamenting that he didn't ask for more when he had the chance. The protagonist's first condition is to publicly release the strategy guide for everyone. The group's leader is taken aback, asking if he's really going to give away something that could save lives for free. The man in the suit agrees, stating the value of that guide is beyond anyone's imagination. The woman comments that this only proves how dangerous the game truly is for everyone. The hero then looks at them and asks if he didn't just show them the guide for free. The group is left speechless by his response, realizing he has a valid point. He then explains that his goals differ from theirs, he wants to save more people. With a serious gaze, the protagonist warns that if they don't accept, the discussion ends here. They realize the young man is serious, and the woman admires him for being unswayed by profit. The three then bow again, promising fulfill the first condition immediately. The second condition is to establish a player management agency with very clear rules. The blonde man smiles, assuring him they can relax, as they already intend to do just that. He then prepares to announce his final, and perhaps most important, condition for the deal. The group tenses up, wondering if the last condition is something even they cannot fulfill. His friend then shouts for the protagonist to ask for money, calling it his last wish. But the hero ignores him and says he wants a house, so he and his mother no longer have to live in the hospital. He glances at his mother in her bed, saying he just wants her to live a normal, peaceful life. The three are dumbfounded by the simple request, and his friend facepalms in frustration. The protagonist adds that if it's too difficult, he can withdraw the request, as he dislikes the feeling of begging. The group implores him not to withdraw, insisting that preparing a house for him is an easy task. With a smirk, the protagonist tells them not to get so excited about his request. The leader apologizes for the scene, and the other two just laugh awkwardly at the situation. They think that of all the conditions, this is the easiest and the one that will most increase his favor toward them. He then concludes the matter, saying he needs to return to his room as he has other things to handle. The hero warns that the countdown for the next prison day will begin shortly. The three are shocked by this information, asking if what he said is really true. At that moment, a 3-day countdown appears before them, proving the young man was right. He then informs them that once they fulfill the second condition, he will provide the strategy for the next dungeon. The three bow respectfully, saying they will do as he commands without question. The protagonist then turns and heads back to the hospital room to rest. The powerful group watches the young man depart, preparing to carry out his orders. One of the security guards informs them that someone wishes to meet with the protagonist. The man in the suit gets annoyed, telling him not to bother the protagonist and to have the person wait outside. But the security guard stammers, asking if the young woman who arrived is the girlfriend of the young man in the room. The group is surprised by the question and turns to see who this person is. Kita then freaks out, saying the girl is Mr. Kurosu's person and that they make a great couple. With a look of betrayal, he grabs the man in the suit, demanding to know how Tokiya could get a girlfriend. But the young woman interrupts, telling him not to say things that cause misunderstandings, as that's not the case. His friend ignores her, continuing his dramatic display, insisting he won't let her pass. One of the women in the group glares at the girl with contempt, remarking that it's been a while. The protagonist then recognizes the girl and says with a serious look, "So was you all along?" With a wicked smile, the young woman remembers how she rejected and humiliated him in front of everyone in the past. He thinks that he never had feelings for her, but now she has also become a player. The girl approaches with a bouquet of flowers, saying she's deeply sorry for what happened in the past. The powerful group senses the hero's genuine hatred for the woman and decides to wait before intervening. His friend erupts, accusing her of insulting the protagonist in front of the entire school. She claims she was young and foolish and now deeply regrets her actions from back then. But the young man cuts her off, saying she only came crawling back because she saw his name on the ranking. The young woman is left speechless by the accusation, as the others stare at her with disdain. The woman in the group realizes the girl is just an opportunist and judges her with a single glance. The girl tries to defend herself, pleading with him not to leave her to fare poorly alone in the dangerous game. His friend gets furious, shouting that she didn't just reject him, she insulted and humiliated him. The protagonist calms him down, reminding him they are in a hospital and need to leave. Before departing, he looks at the girl and states that, for the record, he never liked her, not even for a second. She panics, saying that if he saves her, she'll even let him be her boyfriend and whatever else he wants. The girl runs after him, promising she'll never leave his side if he helps her. But as she reaches the door, she's blocked by two enormous security guards who stare at her sternly. The two men in suits and sunglasses do not let her pass, glaring at her with an intimidating look. Unfazed, she claims to be Tokia's girlfriend and demands they let her through immediately. The woman from the group then remarks that it doesn't seem like Mr. Kurosu wants anything to do with her. The group's leader then orders the guards to escort her out, and they complete instantly. His friend celebrates, asking if getting rid of her didn't feel good for the protagonist. With a serious expression, the hero thinks that based on his memories, she should be in the hospital now. He then walks to his mother's room door, preparing for the reunion he has long awaited. With a swift motion, he opens the door and finally finds the person he was searching for. A beautiful girl with white hair and red eyes looks at him with a gentle gaze and a smile. The girl is so beautiful she seems to glow, and the protagonist stares back at her. His mother then informs him that Eureka is here to see him again and has been waiting for his return. With a smile, he says it's been a long time since he's seen her and greets her with a wave. The young woman is confused, saying she was just there last week and that it hasn't been that long. The protagonist then remembers her passing away in his arms in his past life and becomes emotional. He embraces her tightly, vowing that in this life, he won't let a single person he loves fare poorly. The girl is completely embarrassed by the hug, while his mother just laughs at the cute scene. His friend is confused, wondering if the two are really just friends, as it looks suspicious. Later that night, the full moon illuminates the sky, and the hospital room is quiet. The protagonist watches his mother sleeping peacefully, feeling relieved that she is well. He thinks that the hospital moved them to a VIP room, and that those people truly have influence. The system then displays the remaining time for the next dungeon, 63 hours. With the countdown before him, he knows the next dungeon should follow the same pattern as in his past life. He reflects that he gained an ability called Skill Maintenance, which activates upon touch. To test it, the young man places his hand on the edge of the bed to see what his new ability does. A wave of blue energy spreads through the room, and the protagonist is surprised by its power. He realizes he can see the minute details of any object he is currently touching. With his enhanced vision, he notices that the second screw on the bed's left leg is loose. The hero thinks it's a shame he has no weapons in the hospital, as he wanted to test the ability on them. Suddenly, a mysterious voice echoes in his mind, saying he is qualified to participate. He asks who the entity is and what he is qualified for, not understanding the situation. The voice replies that he will know who it is in due time, but for now, he must make a decision. A dark silhouette appears, telling him to decide whether he will accept its special test. With his eyes glowing, he realizes this being has the power to help him defeat the god. Without hesitation, the protagonist accepts the test and tells the entity to begin the challenge immediately. The entity gives a sinister smile, says very well, and declares the test will start now. But it warns him that if he fails to clear the test, he can never return to this world. The young man is then pulled into a vortex of blue energy, surprised by its sacred power. He wonders what reward he will receive for clearing this mysterious test from the dark entity. A tornado of blue energy forms, and the system announces the commencement of the trial grounds. A blue ice spike erupts from the ground, preparing to attack our protagonist in the test. He dodges the attack with a leap, readying himself for the challenge the entity has prepared. With a focused and determined gaze, the hero faces the trial grounds, ready for whatever comes his way. He finds himself before a dark palace, wondering what this place is in the middle of nowhere. Blue energy begins to form in front of him, and he eyes the manifestation with curiosity. The entity then explains the rule is simple: he must defeat the opponent in 10 minutes. It also advises him that wisdom that sees all is the only way to win the challenge. The protagonist looks at the entity with a serious expression, preparing for the impending combat. The entity then announces the start of the test, and a feminine figure begins to materialize. A blind and invulnerable swordsman appears, and the 10-minute countdown for the test begins. The young man eyes the skeleton within the armor, wondering if that is his opponent. With a smile, he finds the battle between the strongest player and the strongest swordsman intriguing. A blue sword is granted to him, descending from the heavens in a beam of light for the combat. The hero wields the weapon, remarking it's perfect, as he wanted to use his new ability anyway. But the system informs him that resonance cannot be activated, because the target is not physical. He then realizes the ability only works on physical entities and that the sword is an illusion. With a determined look, he declares he won't waste any more time and will clear the test at once. The swordsman charges, and the protagonist challenges it to show him the power of the strongest swordsman. With a smile, he praises the opponent's skill as they exchange sword blows. The enemy attacks with a spinning strike, but the hero manages to defend with his blue sword. He notes that despite the large sword, the opponent's movements are incredibly fast. The blind swordsman continues its assault with a relentless series of quick and powerful strikes. The protagonist then wonders if this swift and powerful attack is its ultimate move. The swordsman attacks with full force, but the protagonist manages to dodge and counter-attack with precision. He remarks the move is incredible, but that the opponent's guard was left wide open during the attack. He then wonders if the swordsman is also an illusion, just like the sword he's using. Therefore, he says he won't feel bad about finishing it off and continues his assault. The young man thinks the wound he inflicted should have been fatal, but the opponent seems to feel nothing. He then realizes it had no effect and that the strongest swordsman truly cannot be harmed. The protagonist finally understands the meaning of his opponent's title: no one can defeat it. With only 5 minutes remaining, he wonders what he must do to win. He continues to evade the swordsman's attacks while trying to devise an effective strategy. The hero recalls the entity's hint, realizing it must signify something important. Amidst one of the attacks, he notices a skull caught in the swordsman's hair and is surprised. He realizes the opponent is protecting the skull and that it must be its weak point. With that, the young man understands the swordsman's oath is to protect the person behind it. He then gets an idea and prepares to put his new plan into action to win the challenge. The entity states that a technique that caliber is unworthy of receiving its special blessing. With a wicked smile, it asserts that no matter what swordsmanship he uses, he cannot win. The protagonist then leaps over his opponent, preparing to attack the skull directly. The swordsman spins around in shock, realizing the young man's strategy, and tries to defend. The entity is surprised by the hero's boldness, not having expected such a move. The young man then shouts for the swordsman to open its eyes and see the person it's protecting. The swordsman turns and faces the skull it had been protecting on its back all this time. Upon seeing the skull, it lets out a cry of pain and despair, and its body begins to disintegrate. It clutches the skeleton and weeps in sorrow as its body turns to dust and flames. With only 51 seconds left, the protagonist watches his opponent vanish. He says the answer was in the hint. He needed to make the enemy realize the truth. The young man understands the sword he received was merely a misdirection for the test. He then faces the mist and challenges the entity to show itself, as he has solved the mystery. The entity congratulates him, remarking that the simplest truth is often the hardest to see. It praises him for succeeding and declares him worthy of receiving its true blessing. The protagonist looks at the entity, wondering what kind of power he will receive as a reward. An intense blue energy completely envelopes him, and his body begins to absorb the new power. The entity then smiles, saying the true test begins now with the newly received blessing. The hero is confused, wondering what it means by there is still a test ahead. The voice then instructs him to feel the emotions of all living beings to accept the power of a god. He then experiences the pain, joy, anger, and sadness of countless souls all at once. Overwhelmed by the emotions, a glass barrier shatters, and he is thrown into a new location. The young man lands amidst a sea of skulls and suffering faces, not understanding what is happening. He realizes that the power of a god consists of the faith and emotions of those living on earth. Looking at the suffering souls, he understands that this is truly a tremendous power. With his face bruised and bleeding, he faces the new challenge with a serious and determined gaze. With a confident smile, he says that with this power, he can finally confront the god. He then declares that the gods of earth will have his support in opposing the evil god. The entity states that this is the final test and that no human can withstand such power. An explosion of energy occurs, and the protagonist is enveloped in an intense, blinding light. The entity is surprised by what happens, unable to comprehend how the young man is still standing. The hero rises amidst the debris, admitting that it's truly impossible to withstand. With a smirk, he asks if that's all the entity can throw at him. The voice congratulates him, saying that as expected, he is the human they acknowledged and is deserving. It says he has obtained its blessing and must remember its name for the future. The entity promises that when he is recognized by them, he will obtain the true supreme blessing. The protagonist is confused by the mention of a supreme blessing and the entity's name. He tries to ask for the voice's name, but it disappears amidst white, glowing feathers. Back in the hospital bed, he wakes up gasping, wondering what blessing he has received. Just then, a system screen appears before him, and he stares at it with a serious, curious look. The screen reveals he has gained the blessing of mental guardian, and his patron is the Seraph Gabriel. With a satisfied smile, he thinks the new blessing will be very useful in future battles. But for now, he is more eager for the supreme blessing Gabriel mentioned in the test. He then realizes the mental illness that tormented him was actually the gods of Earth. With a determined look, he glances at the 23-hour countdown for the dungeon. His friend then bursts into the room, shocked, saying there's even a video version of the guide. The protagonist gives his friend a light smack on the head, telling him to keep it down in a hospital. His friend says he was moved by the video, and that the production was simply amazing. His mother smiles, commenting that the two of them really get along well as good friends. The hero thinks the group acted quickly, and that the guide's video is already circulating everywhere. He also sees they've cooperated with the government and established a management agency. Looking at the ranking, he thinks this could serve as a catalyst for other players. Suddenly, the nurse informs him a car has arrived to pick him up outside. His friend rushes to the window, confirming the powerful group has indeed come for his partner. With his eyes sparkling with excitement, he yells that it's true and the scene is impressive. Outside, a limousine and several black cars with security guards await the protagonist. The woman from the group asks the young man to inform the hero she came personally to pick him up. His friend runs in the room, announcing that all three have come to get him from the hospital. The protagonist then stands, says he understands, and that he'll be down to meet them shortly. His mother worries, asking him not to get his hands dirty with any crime. He reassures her not to worry, as he hasn't done anything wrong. With a smile, he says he's actually saving the world, which leaves her quite confused. With a serious look, he states that eventually, everyone will know the truth and says his goodbyes. The group's leader takes him to a mansion, noting the organic food and beautiful landscape. He also informs him that for their security, guards and maids will be on duty 24 hours a day. His friend is shocked by the luxury, wondering how much such a house must cost. The man clarifies that the property is his and therefore cannot be found on the market. His friend freaks out, asking if that means the house is one of a kind and exclusive in the world. The protagonist ignores him and asks the man to show him the other places he has to offer. The other two from the group watch from a distance, preparing their next offer. The man in the suit comments that it was a rejection, and the woman declares she will be the one to win. With a confident smile, he says the house he selected is something no young person can refuse. He then takes them to a skyscraper, stating a place like this is perfect for the young man. His friend is amazed by the view, yelling that you can see the entire city from there. The man explains the building is in the city center and was designed by a famous architect. With a victorious smile, he announces the largest penthouse suite is already prepared for him. The protagonist's friend is shocked to learn there are other things prepared for them. The man then snaps his fingers, summoning the surprises he has prepared. At that, several beautiful maids appear, introducing themselves to the hero as his new servants. His friend's eyes turn into hearts as he exclaims at the sight of so many divine beauties. The maids surround him, saying he can order whatever he wishes and that he is very cool. The other two from the group are shocked, wondering why they hadn't thought of that before. The man then smiles, thinking no man in the world could refuse such an offer. But the protagonist looks at him coldly and simply tells him to show the next option. The man in the suit is stunned, unable to believe the young man refused such an offer. The woman then smiles, realizing that Mr. Kurosu is truly different from all the others. The blonde man thinks this means he still has a chance to impress the young man. The woman then invites him to come with her, saying the place she chose is not luxurious. She reveals she had someone investigate his mother's past and takes him to a special location. Upon their arrival, she asks if he is familiar with the place, looking at him with a gentle smile. His friend recognizes the location, saying it's the house where the protagonist lived as a child. The other two are shocked, realizing the game is over for them with this move. The woman explains the house has changed owners many times and the layout is different now. But she says she tried to restore everything as much as possible to make him feel comfortable and at ease. The hero is moved, saying it's incredible and the house is almost identical to his memories. With a sincere smile, he thanks her for the gesture, and the woman is happy he liked it. The two men look crestfallen, unable to believe they lost so perfectly. The protagonist then calls his friend, asking him to bring the guide for the next dungeon. The woman is surprised, asking what that is the young man is pulling from inside his pants. The friend explains that the hero wrote the complete strategy for the game's second dungeon. She is shocked that something so precious was stored in such a place. The woman then asks if he will also release this new strategy publicly. But he replies no, saying they can distribute it to players they deem promising. He explains that to become stronger, one must understand the game, not rely on luck. The protagonist says those who got by on luck won't last long and will be eliminated. To select excellent players, it's enough to simply help newbies adapt. He continues, saying if they are truly excellent, they will naturally stand out on their own. The woman then understands the plan and asks what he intends to do by selecting these players. With a determined look, the hero replies he wants them to save and protect the world alongside him. The group is shocked by the young man's ambition, thinking it's a very grand dream. With the countdown approaching, his friend announces they are ready to go. The protagonist then bids farewell to his mother with a hug, promising to return home soon. His friend strikes a pose, declaring he's off on an adventure to another world. His mother is confused by the scene, not quite understanding what's happening with the two of them. The countdown hits 0, and the system announces the selected players will be transported. The two are then enveloped in a blue light, saying goodbye to the protagonist's mother in the room. The hero informs his friend he should be able to clear the dungeon on his own, as they will be acting separately. The young man then says he'll keep an eye on the ranking, determined to get on it this time. With a confident smile, the protagonist faces the new dungeon, ready for another challenge. He realizes that just like in his past life, the second dungeon is the D-Class Frosty Mansion. The system announces the scene creation is complete, and the players' souls have been loaded. The protagonist thinks that, as expected, they are being missiled again by the instructions. He knows that to clear the dungeon, he must form a team with someone he completely trusts. The true condition is to lure the two bosses from different floors to meet in the middle. But he remembers with sadness the moment he was betrayed in his past life by an ally. With a determined look, he summons a golden card, calling for the person he trusts most. The special team building card activates, and an intense golden glow fills the room. The white-haired girl then appears amidst particles of light and looks at the protagonist. The two stare at each other in silence, and the young woman is surprised to see him there. Shocked, she asks why he is there and where they are, not understanding the situation. He explains that he was the one who invited her to the dungeon, and that she was on an island before. The hero thinks that Eureka became a player in the second game and suffered greatly because of it. He remembers how she was forced to survive on the island, suffering for the rest of her life with the scars. That's why he says he called her, to change her destiny and ensure she won't get hurt again. The girl is shocked, asking how he knew she was on the island without her telling him. At that moment, the same blue system window appears before her, and she looks at it with curiosity. The screen welcomes her, informing her she is in the D-Class dungeon, Frosty Mansion. She then recalls the videos she saw online and wonders about the name of that game. The protagonist answers that the game is called Prison Day, and she confirms that's the one. He explains he needed a partner he could trust with his life, which is why he chose her. With the door about to open, he invites her to be his partner and face the dangers together. The young woman then remembers when he invited her to play in the past and looks at him tenderly. Back then she was lonely and sad, but the young man had reached out his hand and invited her to play. He repeats the invitation, asking if she wants to play with him again like in the old days. The girl looks at him with eyes full of emotion, remembering the good times they shared. She then holds his hand tightly, accepting the invitation to be his partner once more. With a radiant smile, she says she would love to be his partner and accepts on the spot. He then asks if she has memorized everything he said, as the door is about to open. The young woman confirms, saying it's an exploration game and she shouldn't touch anything carelessly. She also knows it's not a mansion but a multi-story labyrinth full of monsters. To clear it, they must make the boss from the top meet the boss from the basement in the middle. The protagonist confirms and with a serious look announces he is opening the door to the dungeon. The white-haired girl says yes, and that she will do her best to help him on their journey. With the countdown at 0, he opens the door, and the two enter the Frosty Mansion for the challenge. The hallway is completely frozen, covered in ice and sharp stalactites everywhere. The young woman complains about the cold, and the young man comforts her, saying a card will make it more bearable. Suddenly, a shadow flits past a door, and the hero prepares for the encounter he was anticipating. He thinks that, just as he imagined, the traitor from his past life has also appeared in this dungeon. A man with a knife appears, complaining about the cold and wondering if monsters will show up. He then sees the two of them, and looks surprised to find other people there. With a smile, he asks if they are also players and approaches with a friendly demeanor. The protagonist knows he will ask to form a team and that he appears to be an honest guy. But in reality, he's a shameless coward who betrays his own teammates. He remembers how the man would hide behind him during fights because he was weak and cowardly. With a smirk, the protagonist prepares himself, knowing exactly what will happen next. He recalls that when he used all his strength to defeat a boss, the traitor stabbed him in the back. The young man recalls that the traitor backstabbed him just to steal a skill card. Tokiya then reflects that if it weren't for one person, he would have met his end right there on the floor. Back in the present, the traitor suggests they form a team to make dealing with monsters easier. But his real plan is to get rid of the hero so he can take advantage of the beautiful girl with him. The man also covets the protagonist's sword, telling himself he will definitely take it. With a fake smile, he extends his hand, saying that in a game like this, they need to cooperate. However, the protagonist retorts that he stabbed him first, and now he's returning the favor with his sword. With no chance to react, the traitor is struck square in the chest, completely shocked by the pain. With a cold gaze, the hero tells him to experience the same suffering he felt in his past life. The young man then turns to his partner and calmly asks if she has any questions about this. The girl replies that she doesn't, as she trusts he has a good reason for everything he does. He then invites her to go find some skill cards, and the young woman agrees immediately. With that, the two leave the traitor's body behind and continue their exploration of the Frosty Mansion. Elsewhere, a man with glasses remarks that the information about the #1 ranked player, Kurosu Tokiya, was correct. He wonders if the guy who releases guides for free is worthy of his observation, Shijimori Itsuki. Looking at the ranking, the man with glasses thinks that he simply can't decipher the hero's intentions. Back with the protagonists, they sense a strange presence, certain a monster is nearby. A monster called the Hanged Man appears, and Eureka shouts a warning that it's heading towards them. With sharp claws and a glowing eye, the creature charges with full force to attack the two players. The girl screams her partner's name, holding onto him tightly as the monster closes in. But the monster doesn't even have time to react before it's met with a powerful punch that sends it flying. With a bored expression, the protagonist tells the creature it's too loud and annoying. He then fires a powerful energy beam from his hand that hits the monster dead on. The attack pierces through the creature's body, causing a large explosion at the end of the hallway. The monster then dissolves into light, leaving behind a vigor card that increases 1 level. Eureka is shocked by the ease of it all, asking if this is how he always fought in dungeons. The hero replies that it isn't, and that this monster was just exceptionally weak and powerless. She gets excited at the idea of stronger monsters, imagining herself in a real horror movie. He then hands the card to her, telling her to concentrate to acquire the new skill. The young woman holds the golden card, thinking it's impossible for such a monster to exist in an apartment. With her eyes closed, she focuses on the card, hoping to be able to use its power. A golden light envelopes her, and she is surprised to realize she actually managed to use the card. Her status panel appears, showing her stamina is now successfully at level 1. He praises her for learning quickly and invites her to the next floor of the Frosty Mansion. The girl notices she doesn't feel as cold anymore and is happy to have acquired the new skill. The young woman then questions how he knows so much about the game, asking if he enjoys playing. The protagonist stops walking and looks at her in silence, leaving the girl confused by his reaction. With a somber expression, he just stares at her without saying a word on the matter. Eureka gets nervous with the silence and asks if she said something strange. The hero states the game is not interesting at all and reminds her of their true purpose. With a cold and determined gaze, the protagonist reveals their purpose is to destroy the game. The girl falls silent for a moment, then says that even if she doesn't understand, she trusts his reasons. Suddenly, a monstrous hand smashes through an ice wall, preparing to attack the two of them. The creature lets out a terrifying roar and charges with full force toward the hero's partner. But with a swift move, the young man steps in front of her to shield her from the monster's attack. Without any difficulty, he stops the creature with a single hand, gripping its face firmly. With one squeeze, he crushes the monster's head, which shatters into pieces before him. He then remarks it's a shame she doesn't have a card, as that's the difficulty of this dungeon. But he reveals that the boss of each floor always drops one and invites her to go find it. Meanwhile, other players are completely lost in the labyrinth, unsure of what to do. Eureka realizes they are not lost and admires how incredible her partner is for knowing the way. He explains the mansion isn't difficult initially, and that the temperature drops 1 degree every 5 minutes. However, the temperature continues to fall, and the more time passes, the harder it becomes for everyone. Furthermore, if they don't find the floor boss, the door to the next level will never open. Eventually, all players will end up frozen and unable to survive. The young woman is terrified by the thought of everyone freezing, but the hero remains calm and focused. He knows the rate of temperature drop increases and remembers the boss's location. With that, the two head to find the boss, aiming to take it down as quickly as possible. The man with glasses observes from a distance, wondering about the reason for the protagonist's actions. He suspects the young man has a special ability and hopes not to be disappointed by the #1 rank. Deep within the frozen labyrinth, the two continue their journey through the dangerous, icy mansion. The protagonist knows the first floor boss is nearby and considers how to lure it out. Suddenly, a redhead guy appears out of nowhere, calling him by name and surprising them both. With an arrogant tone, the young man demands the hero answer him, as he is speaking directly to him. His partner then asks if he knows the guy, but Tokiya replies that he doesn't. The redhead gets annoyed at being ignored, yelling that they shouldn't underestimate him because he's in the ranking. From a distance, the man in the suit observes the scene, wondering what this new player's rank could be. The protagonist says he has memorized the top 10 and the redhead isn't one of them, then asks for his rank. The young man introduces himself as Zhang Shuo, stating he's ranked 783 but will become #1. The hero and his partner just stare at him expressionlessly upon learning his rank. The man in the suit gets annoyed, thinking he just wasted his time worrying about this. Tokiya asks what 783 wants and the redhead shouts that he came to defeat him. He declares he will show everyone that the protagonist's first place rank was nothing but a fluke. But before he can act, the hero lands a casual punch squarely on his face. The force of the single blow sends the redhead and his friends tumbling backward to the ground. With a bored look, the protagonist tells him to get lost as he is very busy. The redhead then pulls out a knife, stating he gave the hero no permission to leave. His friends cheer him on, and the young man says his only target is the hero. The girl is fair game for them. With his face bruised, he yells that he will return the punch 100 times stronger. Tokia thinks they are just idiots, not truly bad people, and decides to teach them a lesson. With a powerful kick, the protagonist shatters a metal door and grabs a pipe to use as a weapon. He then grips the improvised object tightly, preparing for the fight against the troublemakers. With a smirk, he says he will punish all of them with this simple metal pipe. The hero thinks this is perfect, as he needs to lure out the floor boss somehow. He then decides to test his new class ability and activates Tool Resonance. The system reveals the pipe is useless junk but notes its resonance can increase with use. The young man finds it interesting that the ability can evaluate weapons and decides to use it often. The redhead glares at him, saying he's overestimating himself and will regret not using his sword. Unfazed, the protagonist just stares at the group of troublemakers with a look of contempt. The leader then yells furiously for all his friends to charge and attack the hero at once. However, his friends are scared and push him forward, telling him to go first. Annoyed by their cowardice, the redhead yells at his useless friends to attack without hesitation. But one of them reminds him the protagonist is the world's #1 rank and they have no chance. The leader shouts that he doesn't care and will only be satisfied if he can defeat the hero. With his knife ready, he charges, yelling that it doesn't matter if the young man is rank 1 because he is nothing. But with a bored look, the protagonist thinks he will use his screams to lure the boss. Effortlessly, he strikes the redhead with the metal pipe, telling him to use his brain more. His face contorted in pain, the young man is left speechless by the force of the blow. He then collapses to his knees screaming in agony, and everyone is shocked by the scene. The hero then comments that it was a good scream and that the boss must have heard it. Suddenly, a green tentacle appears out of nowhere and lunges at high speed towards the group. The tentacle wraps around the redhead's body, squeezing him tightly and leaving him desperate. With that, the young man is dragged away by the creature with no chance of escape. His friends panic, yelling for someone to run and save their leader. Eureka then asks the protagonist what that thing was that just appeared. He replies that it's the floor boss and that defeating it will open the path to the next level. With that, the hero invites her to follow him, saying there's no need to rush. The young woman is shocked by his speed, wondering if that's the power of a player. She then imagines herself as a superheroine, excited by the idea of gaining powers. From a distance, the man with glasses admires him, wondering if he came all this way to hunt the boss. The man in the suit then decides he must somehow become his teammate. Meanwhile, the redhead's friends yell at the monster to release their boss, who is being crushed. They continue to scream desperately for the creature to stop its attack and free their friend. One of them even threatens the unknown creature, saying he'll finish it off. At that, one of the friends charges forward to try and save his leader from the monster's grasp, but the monster attacks all of them at once, sending them flying with a single blow. At that moment, the floor boss reveals itself as a mutant E+ rank carnivorous plant with high stats. The red head is then pulled into the monster's mouth, screaming desperately for help. From inside the plant's mouth, the young man sees the protagonist calmly approaching. The hero then faces the boss with his sword drawn, ready for the final combat of the floor. The redhead despairs, wondering if the protagonist will actually save him after everything. Without a second thought, the hero charges with his sword and slices through the plant's tentacles. With a single powerful and precise blow, he unleashes a slash of blue energy at the monster. The creature lets out a cry of pain as it is completely bisected by the young man's attack. The redhead finds himself free, shocked to have been saved by his rival. But he realizes the feeling of being saved is more painful than being defeated. The hero then tells him to get up, saying if he wants to reach the top 10, he'll fight with his sword. The protagonist challenges him to reach the top 10 so they can fight as equals. The redhead remains silent for a moment, processing the words of his newly saved rival. With determination, he promises he will definitely get there and thanks him for the save. With the boss defeated, the passage to the next floor opens, presenting 2 options. To ascend, they must fight mutant monsters. To descend, they must face scary ghosts. The hero's partner finally catches up to him, and the system warns they have little time. The young woman despairs, asking which of the 2 terrible paths they should choose. The redhead looks at her, noting that while both paths are scary, she seems excited. The girl is thrilled by the idea of monsters and ghosts, saying both options are great. With a smile, she gets excited about the choices and wonders if the protagonist thinks she's odd. He then looks at her seriously, asking which of the 2 options she truly wants to choose. The young woman panics, realizing she simply can't decide between the 2. Suddenly, the man with glasses appears, asking to join their group on the journey. The man introduces himself as Mori Shigeruki, the world's rank 34, and says he can be useful. The protagonist remarks that he has finally shown himself, and his partner is shocked by his high rank. The redhead then scoffs at his ranking, declaring he will surely be a future top 10 player. The hero reveals he noticed he was being followed but decided to let it go. He then remembers that in his past life, the man with glasses saved him when he needed it most. Shigeruki is surprised to have been noticed by the young man and looks at him with curiosity. The protagonist recalls how he was betrayed and thought he would perish at the hands of his former ally, but he was saved by the man with glasses, who said his skill was too good to be wasted. With his glasses gleaming, he promised that if the hero followed his orders, he would let him clear the dungeon. And that's how the protagonist managed to clear the dungeon step by step with his help. Back then, the man with glasses was a true savior to him amidst all the chaos. However, even someone as capable as him eventually lost his life in that cruel and deadly game. At that moment, the young man learned that no matter how strong someone is, to the dark gods, all players are nothing more than simple toys for the amusement of evil entities. Back in the present, the man with glasses asks if something is wrong with the protagonist. The raid head then wonders why the world's #1 rank would bother with a mere rank 34. But the hero says that strong people are welcome, and he needed a fierce warrior like him. He then offers some cards as a small token of appreciation, but the man with glasses declines. The protagonist thinks that since he helped him in the past, it's now his turn to return the favor. With a smile, Shigeruki says Mr. Kurozu is indeed very strong and accepts the cards. With a smile, the man with glasses offers the cards to the protagonist's partner. The young woman gets incredibly excited, saying that with these, she too can become a superheroine. But she hesitates, looking to her friend for his approval before taking the cards. He then tells her to do as she wishes, as she needs the cards to grow stronger. With a radiant smile, the girl says thank you and takes the cards from her new teammate. Shigeruki says he should be the one who is grateful, thinking that now he can trust them a little. He then decides he will think of a gift for the protagonist when they return to reality. The hero warns that the next floor's boss is stronger and they can't afford to waste time. The two new companions agree and prepare to follow the protagonist's lead. The redhead gets excited, thinking if even the Four Eyes can join, then surely he can too. He declares himself a genius and prepares to ask to join the #1 player's group. With his hand raised, he asks to join the group and fight alongside them in the dungeon. But with a cold, direct look, the protagonist tells him to get out of his sight. The redhead is left completely speechless, unable to believe he was rejected so bluntly. Shigeruki then asks if the hero is familiar with this dungeon, and he replies that its structure is simple. He explains the mansion has 7 floors, and they were on the 4th floor until now. The man with glasses is surprised and asks if he also knows the final boss's weakness. The protagonist reveals there are 2 final bosses, and they cannot be defeated by normal means. The only way to clear the dungeon is to make the boss from the lower floor encounter the one from the upper floor. Shocked by this information, Shigeruki realizes they would need to split into 2 groups. But the protagonist reveals his plan to attack the lower floor first and then rush up. He explains that this strategy allows them to make the 2 bosses meet while minimizing risk. The man with glasses is impressed, remarking that this is a strategy only Tokiya could execute. Eureka then realizes his initial plan was to lure both bosses and face the final one alone. The hero confirms this but says he switched to a lower risk option because her safety is more important. With a smile, the young woman thanks him, saying he is very kind for worrying about her. Suddenly, she sneezes, complaining about the intense cold on this floor of the mansion. The girl complains she's freezing despite her increased stats, and her panel appears. The protagonist explains the temperature here drops almost twice as fast as on the 1st floor. They agree to defeat the boss as quickly as possible to move forward. Suddenly, a glowing blue eye opens in the darkness, observing the group of players. The floor boss emerges an enormous white wolf with powerful, glowing blue eyes. Along with it, a horde of ghosts with glowing purple eyes appears, ready to attack the group. Shigeruki wonders how the hero found the boss so quickly in such a vast labyrinth. The protagonist replies that this is a route he learned with his life on the line and would never forget. The man with glasses is stunned, wondering if the young man had been here before, even prior to the game. The floor boss reveals itself as a D rank hound with very high power and speed stats. The hero warns that they are coming and tells the other 2 to focus on protecting themselves. Shigeruki assures him not to worry, promising to protect Eureka with his life. With that, the protagonist feels more at ease, knowing his partner will be safe during the battle. With his sword glowing blue, the protagonist charges with all his might at the enormous white wolf. He challenges the creature to combat, and the monster lets out a furious roar in response. Without wasting time, the hero lands a precise and powerful blow on the giant wolf's head. Meanwhile, the ghost with glowing purple eyes roar and advance to attack. Shigeruki acts quickly, positioning himself in front of Eureka to shield her from the monsters. With swift and precise movements, he begins to fight the ghost using martial arts. He reveals himself as the 9th successor of Bagua Zhang, declaring the ghosts are no match for him. With a confident smile, he tells Eureka not to worry, as he will handle everything quickly. But the girl surprises everyone by landing a powerful punch on one of the ghosts with ease. She gets incredibly excited upon realizing she can also defeat the monsters with her new strength. The man with glasses is surprised, thinking that she, too, is full of mysteries just like Tokiya. The white-furred creature is hit head-on by a powerful blast of blue energy. In the middle of the intense fight, Tokiya faces the giant wolf, which roars furiously. With a confident look, the protagonist claims he's already got the creature. He continues his relentless attack, and the giant monster howls in pain from the barrage. Watching the scene, Shigeruki realizes the hero is intentionally avoiding the boss's vital spots. At this, the man with glasses wonders if taking down the monster isn't what will let them advance. He fears that they might not all make it if the temperature keeps dropping like that. This leaves his ally confused, trying to understand Tokiya Kurozu's real plan. Meanwhile, the protagonist continues his battle against the wolf, surrounded by an aura of blue energy. He thinks that defeating this creature would send the lower floor boss into a rage mode. But he reveals that if he incapacitates it without the final blow, a secret mission will be activated. That's why he needs to lower the monster's health to exactly 1% and no more. Suddenly, the system shows that the boss is preparing its special attack called Gale Roar. Then Shigeruki shouts to Tokiya, warning him that the monster is about to use its ultimate, so he should protect himself. The white wolf unleashes a massive gust of wind with its powerful special attack. However, the hero stands still and tells his ally not to worry and just protect the girl. Shigeruki thinks that if he faces the attack head-on, he won't get away unscathed and wonders what the plan is. He then decides to trust his leader, as his rule is to faithfully follow whoever he chooses. So the man with glasses pulls his partner to a safe corner, and she agrees. The wolf's powerful attack sweeps through the hall, wiping out the ghosts that were still there. Shigeruki thanks his companion, saying that was a close call and that she saved him. But the girl screams in despair that Tokiya is still out there and they need to go find him. Then the man with glasses stops her, saying the hero told them to stay put. With that, he asks her to trust the protagonist, but the young woman wonders if he'll be okay alone. The wind finally stops, and Eureka questions if it's safe to go look, but her friend tells her to wait a bit longer. Just then, they hear the young man's voice calling, and his partner recognizes it instantly. Without wasting a moment, the two of them run toward their leader's voice. Arriving at the spot, they call out Tokiya's name and search for him through the smoke. But upon seeing the scene, the man with glasses has a look of surprise on his face. The white-haired girl's jaw also drops, unable to believe what she's seeing. The protagonist is standing next to the wolf, which has only 1% of its health left and is weakened. His friend calls him incredible, and Shijiro admits they didn't need to worry. The hero then says this should activate the secret mission as he approaches the creature. At this, his companion understands that he didn't finish off the boss in order to unlock a quest. The girl gets super excited about the secret mission and thinks it's all very cool. Tokiya then invites the wolf, named Ars, to come with them to find its master. The white-furred creature just lets out a low howl, its eyes glowing. A system screen appears, asking if they accept having the boss Ars join their party. With a smile, the young man says of course and presses the button to accept the request. The system confirms that Ars has joined the party and that the secret mission has been unlocked. With the mission complete, the system announces the rewards for defeating the boss Ars. He also gets a storage ring that holds items but not living creatures. Holding the new cards, Takia Kurozu thinks that he can finally use these D-rank abilities. With that, his status panel is displayed, showing his power and speed at high levels. The screen also reveals his permanent Mental Guardian ability, which protects him from psychic attacks. Without wasting time, the protagonist decides to use the power cards he just received. His stats are then updated and his power and stamina rise to levels 13 and 12. He then thinks about the storage ring and how the item will make everything more convenient. Suddenly, the recently defeated creature starts barking at the black-haired young man. The giant wolf transforms into a cute puppy, and the hero wonders if this is its real form. Surprised, his friends ask if that adorable little animal is really the boss from before. The protagonist confirms it and says he can change it back if they don't believe him. The girl is terrified just imagining the monster's original, scary form. Then Tokiya says he was just kidding and that the puppy form is its true form now. Shijiro comments that if all the bosses are like this, the dungeon's creator is an idiot. The young man agrees and says that the further they go, the more they'll see the darkness of the game. With that, Eureka says she's starting to understand that his goal is to destroy the game. The group then comes across a digital portal and prepares to head to the next floor. But as they descend the stairs, a mysterious meow echoes from the darkness. The girl realizes it's the cry of a cat, and the group wonders what's down there. The little wolf starts barking furiously in the white-haired girl's arms. With a serious look, Tokiya reveals that the sound isn't from a cat, but from the boss on the floor below. He then says the pup seems eager to see its old friend and invites everyone to go. The system informs them they are on the mansion's second floor, and the temperature is 10 degrees below zero. In addition, the temperature drops 2 degrees per minute, and several frozen monsters appear. At that moment, the group comes face to face with the new enemies in the icy hallway. The creatures look like zombies with glowing purple eyes and a frightening appearance. Eureka notes that the number of monsters has increased, and the hero explains that the difficulty will only get worse. The enemies then roar and charge full speed at the group of players. But the protagonist just stares at the horde with a confident smile on his face. He then turns to his companion with glasses, who gets the message instantly. Shijiro moves forward quickly and prepares to face the monsters with a blue aura. With that, he unleashes a powerful energy strike that sweeps away the enemies in front of him. He tells Tokiya to save his strength for the boss, and his status panel is revealed. The young man watches the scene, and thinks that skilled players like Shijiro are also getting stronger. The man with glasses continues to fight masterfully, using his special martial art. He then tells his two companions to follow him closely as he clears a path. The girl is amazed and comments that her new friend is incredibly strong. But the fighter asks the protagonist if he knows where the boss is, since he's just clearing the way. He then scratches his head with an awkward smile, not knowing where to go. Two monsters roar and leap to attack the fighter, who has his back to them. His friend screams in despair, warning him to watch out for the attack from behind. The man with glasses turns around with a panicked expression as he senses the imminent danger. The creature gets very close, and the fighter curses himself for being caught off guard. But he hears the protagonist's voice telling him to duck and recognizes it instantly. A beam of red energy flies over his head and hits the monster's head on. With a few more energy strikes, the young man defeats all the enemies easily. The shadow of the attack is cast on the wall, and his friend is amazed by so much power. Shijiro thinks to himself that his leader's strength is truly abnormal. The protagonist then tells them to go, as he knows exactly where the boss is. He kicks a door open with force, throwing out the monsters that were inside. The group stops in front of the room, and the young man states that this is the floor's boss. The boss is a giant white cat named Pearls with high power and speed stats. With its red eyes glowing, the giant creature lets out a furious meow. The girl thinks the giant cat is very cute, and her friend wonders how she could think that. The hero says he remembers the boss is too fast, and not even he can outrun it. That's why he states they need a different method to be able to defeat it. The young man then turns to his friend and asks to borrow the puppy. He reveals that Arja's cry applies a debuff to former companions like the cat. With that, he tells the two of them to handle the other monsters, and says he'll take on the boss. His two companions agree with the plan and say the protagonist can leave it to them. But the fighter is worried because Eureka has no combat experience, even though she isn't afraid. Without hesitation, the black-haired young man leaps into the middle of the battle to face the enemies. The giant cat furiously attacks the other monsters with its sharp claws and teeth. The smaller creatures then surround the hero, trying to stop him from reaching the boss. With his eyes glowing red, Tokiya Kurozu warns the monsters not to get in his way. He then uses his sword to cut down the enemies with swift and precise strikes. With a quick movement, he advances across the battlefield, giving his opponents no chance. The protagonist then leaps toward the giant boss, preparing his next attack. The huge creature lets out a furious meow, ready for combat against the young player. He realizes the enemy's attack has begun and that he needs to stop its momentum immediately. With that, the hero throws the small airs toward the boss and tells it to cry. The puppy obeys and lets out a powerful cry, its eyes glowing blue. The sound hits the giant cat head-on, which becomes confused by the cry of its old friend. The system then shows that Pearl's morale, speed, and power have been reduced. Seizing the opportunity, the protagonist prepares his final blow to strike the weakened boss. He unleashes a massive slash of red energy that goes straight for the creature. The strike hits the target dead-on and causes a large explosion of red light. After the attack, the hero stands over the boss, which now has only 1% of its health. With a serious look, he says everything is fine and that it's now time for the next step. The protagonist then asks Pearls if it wants to go with ours to find their master. The giant creature just growls, baring its teeth with a look of fury. At that moment, the small airs barks at its former companion, trying to convince it. With that, the huge cat lets out a low meow and seems to finally give in to the request. A system screen appears asking the group to accept the boss into the team, and Tokia agrees. Then, the defeat of the second floor boss is confirmed, and a bright light illuminates the area. As a reward, the group receives 2D rank speed cards and 2D rank power cards. They also get an enhancement core, and the cat transforms into a cute kitten. With the card in hand, the young man thinks that he can now improve one of his abilities. Without wasting time, he decides to immediately use the ability cards he just got. Thus, his status panel is updated, and his power and speed rise to levels 15 and 12. The system then informs him that a secret mission has been unlocked with both bosses in the group. All members get a special buff that increases their stats in the final bonus. His two companions are surprised and celebrate the new buff and the increased bonus. Suddenly, an ice portal forms in front of them, and his friend asks if it's the way forward. The group then walks toward the portal, ready to meet the final boss. With a determined look, Tokia Kurozu thinks about the first boss that can't be defeated normally. Going down the stairs, they enter an ice cave and the girl complains about the cold. The hero then takes out a card and thinks that D-rank abilities only increase damage. Even so, he decides to use the enhancement core to improve one of his skills. The protagonist's sword glows intensely with a blue aura as he prepares for the upgrade. The system screen shows the details of the lapis sigil, which absorbs the opponent's HP with each hit. Suddenly, the hero remembers an important detail he had completely forgotten. The system then confirms the core was used successfully and the lapis sigil has leveled up. With this, the Chrono Slash ability evolves, and the damage now matches the user's power. Satisfied, he comments that the increased power is great and decides to check the skill selection. Without hesitation, the black-haired young man presses the button to choose the new ability. The system then begins the selection process for the sword's second unique ability. He is transported to a phantom space where a sword floats, surrounded by colored panels. The protagonist understands that each color represents an ability rank, going from E to S. He thus prepares to choose the second skill for his lapis sigil from the options. His hand then goes straight to a purple panel, and he seems to recognize the ability instantly. A screen confirms that the second unique ability has been successfully acquired by the player. The new B+ rank skill called Whirling Wind is permanently added to the weapon. The new ability's effect increases the user's speed by 5 levels when using the sword. With a smile on his face, Tokia Kurosu is satisfied as a speed boost is always useful. Meanwhile, on the floor below, several D-rank monsters appear with varying stats. The frozen creatures seem stronger than those on the previous floors and appear in greater numbers. Seeing the enemies, Eureka says the lowest floor has even more monsters and that she needs to fight. Shidroi says they need to keep up the pace because if Tokia fights, he'll finish everything in an instant. The protagonist says he's going straight for the boss and is leaving the monsters for his friends to level up on. With that, the man with glasses thinks that they always end up letting Tokia handle everything by himself. But the hero says he's just going to bring the boss and tells them to level up as fast as possible. Watching her leader leave, the white-haired girl is a bit surprised by his attitude. Suddenly, a scary creature lunges to attack Eureka, and her companion shouts in panic. However, the girl is not intimidated and lands a powerful punch right in the middle of the monster's face. With the force of the impact, the enemy is thrown far away without the slightest chance to react. Then with a serious look, she challenges the monsters, and her level 6 status panel is revealed. She then yells that she's gotten much stronger since she arrived, and that she'll show her power. The young woman charges at the horde, thinking that she trained all this power to protect her beloved Tokia. Watching the scene, Shidroi realizes she has 2 personalities and only shows her true self when the leader is away. At that moment, one of the creatures takes advantage of the distraction and leaps to attack the man with glasses. But the fighter doesn't let it faze him and prepares for combat with a quick, precise movement. Adjusting his glasses, he says he's also going to fight with all he's got so he doesn't fall behind in the battle. With that, he turns to the horde of enemies surrounding him, roaring menacingly. The creatures with sharp teeth and glowing purple eyes look ready to devour him. Meanwhile, the protagonist arrives in a dark area filled with bones and ice crystals. The place looks like a graveyard, and the heavy atmosphere would be terrifying for any normal person. There, he finally finds the final boss, a level 15 ice maiden with high stats. The boss then turns to the young player and comments on the arrival of a living human to this place. The protagonist thinks about the 50% chance of awakening the boss's memories with a cry. With a frightening look, the creature says that fresh blood is sweet, and she wants it for herself. Without wasting time, the boss charges full speed at the young player to attack him. He then orders his 2 pets to cry, and they let out a powerful howl and meow. The sound hits the Ice Maiden head-on, and her eyes seem to lose some of their glow. But a system screen informs him that the attempt to awaken her memories has failed. With that, the boss unleashes an aura of purple energy and seems to become even more furious. The hero then tells his pets it's not their fault and that he didn't expect it to work anyway. The creature attacks again, thirsty for blood, and the protagonist throws himself to the ground to dodge. He thinks he needs to buy time for his friends to grow and that the new skill helps him dodge. Meanwhile, his companions finish clearing the area, and the fighter says they've dealt with all the monsters. Shijuru's panel shows he has leveled up to 11 and gained a buff to his stats. Eureka has also leveled up and comments that the enemies were strong, but their levels increased a lot. Suddenly, a loud sound approaches, and the girl wonders if their leader is bringing the boss. Her personality changes instantly, and she gets all excited about Tokia's return, leaving her friends speechless. At that moment, the protagonist runs at high speed toward them, bringing the boss right behind him. With a smile on her face, the white-haired girl calls out her beloved leader's name. The enormous Ice Maiden chases him closely with an expression of fury on her face. Seeing the scene, the two are shocked by the size of the bottom floor's final boss. Without stopping, the hero shouts for them to turn around because they're heading to the floor above. With a wicked laugh, the boss prepares her attack of sharp ice crystals. The fighter offers to help, but the hero warns that the creature will only stop when it catches him. At this, the system confirms that the Ice Maiden has locked her sights on Tokiya Kurozu. The boss floats and shouts for the human not to run, as she wants his fresh blood. He then narrowly dodges the ice beams the creature fires relentlessly. His friends comment on how only he can stay calm while being chased like that. Suddenly, more frozen monsters appear, blocking the group's path. The protagonist realizes the monsters won't stop spawning until the boss is taken down. His two friends step forward and say they're not afraid anymore and won't get in the way. With a powerful strike, the two companions create a barrier and stop the horde. Seeing this, the black-haired young man realizes his two companions have grown a lot. Meanwhile, elsewhere, other players are struggling to survive the cold and the monsters. But a red-haired player defeats one of the monsters with a single powerful punch. He boasts to his friends, saying he's number one and that they don't need to be afraid. Suddenly, a rhythmic tremor begins and the group's leader wonders what it is. Looking up, they see the trio running toward them at high speed. The red-headed leader is shocked and wonders why they came back if the boss was downstairs. Right behind them, the Ice Maiden appears with her status panel and her thirst for blood. The group is terrified when they realize the tremor wasn't an earthquake but the final boss. Without a second thought, Shijiro furiously yells for them to fall back if they don't want to get wiped out. The red-haired player boasts that he's the best and won't back down from a boss. He then challenges the monsters to come at him, but Tokiya runs right past him. However, the boss plows through and throws the redhead's friends aside with no difficulty. The giant creature then attacks the red-haired player, who is frozen in fear. With that, he falls to the ground defeated, and his friends scream in despair, telling him to fight. Tokiya says they can leave them, as the boss won't attack anyone else besides him. The system warns them that they have passed the middle floor and will attract mutant creatures. Eureka asks if the bosses upstairs have secret rules, and he explains that things are different. He reveals that the boss upstairs is the father of the boss downstairs, and reuniting them clears the dungeon. The upstairs boss became a father on the day his wife passed away because of a quack doctor. With no mother, the daughter grew up healthy but relied on her pets for companionship. But one day, she was hit by a car right in front of her father while waiting for him. The game's creators then stole their souls and trapped them forever in the building. That's why only the players who discover the right method can reunite them and free their souls. Reuniting the father and daughter is the only way to clear the dungeon and end their suffering. His friend is outraged by the tragic story and says the game's creators are despicable. Suddenly, a huge mutant creature appears, and the other players are terrified by its strength. The creature is a D-rank boss, the Quack Doctor, who caused countless losses of life. His friends soon realize that this is the Quack Doctor from the story Tokiya told. Without hesitation, the protagonist readies his sword and yells for everyone to get down immediately. The other players are terrified by the shadow of the Quack Doctor looming behind them. With his sword glowing red, the hero unleashes a powerful X-shaped slash. The energy strike hits the Quack Doctor head on, giving it no chance to defend. A system screen then confirms that the target was successfully destroyed by the attack. After the strike, the black-haired young man continues running up the stairs without even looking back. The other players are left speechless, wondering who that incredibly strong guy is. At that moment, the Ice Maiden lets out a furious scream and continues her relentless pursuit. The group of players panics upon seeing the final boss from the bottom floor up here. The giant creature just floats past them, completely ignoring them. They realize she isn't attacking them and wonder if it was the guy from before who lured her. With that, they are impressed and comment that the mysterious player is just too strong. Then a new boss emerges, the modified truck driver D, rank in level 11. His friends are shocked, and the fighter comments on how the driver's greed cost lives. Without wasting time, Tokiya leaps toward the new boss and tells his friends to fall back. The huge driver prepares a powerful punch to crush the protagonist with all its might. But the young man dodges with ease and says the monster's attack is too slow for him. With a quick movement, he unleashes another one of his red energy slashes. The system confirms the boss's defeat, and the hero lands on the ground in a stylish pose. With a serious look, he says the top floor is next and that they'll clear it soon. The trio then continues up the stairs of the dark, frozen building. From afar, a mysterious eye watches the group and comments that they are abnormally fast. Reaching the top floor, the trio comes face to face with a new type of level 10 mutant monster. A massive horde of blue, muscular creatures completely blocks their path. The enemies look much stronger than the previous ones, with their sharp teeth and purple eyes. Undeterred, the group charges forward, clearing a path through the crowd of monsters. The protagonist then shouts that the top floor boss is just behind that door. The creatures roar furiously and continue their relentless pursuit of the players. With that, the hero tells his friends to go on ahead and that he'll take care of the remaining enemies. He then unleashes a massive slash of red energy that sweeps away all the monsters at once. With the path clear, the black-haired man shouts for his companions to go without him. The force of the attack ends up pushing the two of them toward the final boss room door. The pair then prepares for battle and says that the top floor boss is here. A system screen appears, confirming they have entered the final boss's domain. The creature is a giant D+ rank ice monster with level 15 stats. Its special ability is a freezing breath capable of launching attacks at will. His friends are surprised, as the boss appearance is very different from what they imagined. Suddenly the door closes, and the girl despairs upon realizing they are trapped. The system announces that the door will only open when a player from outside meets the conditions. Without wasting time, the huge ice boss charges forward to attack the cornered pair. The fighter says they have to fight for their lives and hold on until Tokia arrives. Outside, the system displays a mission where he must defeat all the mutants in 5 minutes. The protagonist is surprised, as this is an event that should only appear in more advanced dungeons. He then notices something strange that didn't exist in his past life and becomes suspicious. With that, a giant red eye appears in the darkness, and the young man wonders if it's an evil god. Tokia then gets ready and says that 5 minutes is more than enough to finish everyone there. He thinks that his return caused changes in the game and that even with his memories, he must be cautious. Without wasting time, the hero charges forward with his sword, unleashing several red energy slashes. The black-haired young man moves at high speed among the huge blue creatures of the floor. But he notices that the monsters are running away and realizes their behavior has also changed. Even so, Tokia states that in terms of speed, they are no match for him and leaps into attack. Suddenly, the boss from the floor below appears and grabs him from behind with her giant hand. The protagonist is caught by surprise and has a shocked expression on his face. The Ice Maiden who pursued him all this way attacks him with all her might, giving him no chance to defend. With that, he complains that the creature is getting in his way and that this is a big problem. The boss then says she's going to squeeze all the blood out of him and prepares a powerful ice attack. Then a huge ice crystal forms around the hero, trapping him completely. The black-haired young man is completely immobilized inside the boss's ice prison. The creature then looks at the ice and wonders where the fresh blood she wanted so badly is. The time keeps ticking, and the counter shows only 4 minutes and 22 seconds remaining. But suddenly, Tokia Kurozu appears in the air and leaps down to attack the boss from above. He activates his time-rending slash ability with a power of level 2. With that, the hero unleashes a massive strike of red energy toward the enemy. The attack hits the ice creature head on but doesn't seem to cause much damage. The boss then smiles and says he was hiding behind her the whole time. After the attack, the black-haired young man lands on the ground and prepares for his next move. He thinks that the boss won't go down, but now he can defeat the monsters and open the door. The clock is still ticking, and now there are only 4 minutes and 15 seconds left for the mission. He thinks about the final boss and how its strength is even greater than the Ice Maiden's. The protagonist then shouts for his friends to hang in there and charges into battle. With less than 4 minutes remaining, the young man must hurry to save his companions in time. Meanwhile, in the boss room, the fighter is hit by a powerful punch from the monster. With the force of the impact, the man with glasses is thrown far away with no chance to react. He screams in pain as his body is slammed against the ice wall of the boss room. Lying on the ground, he thinks about the speed of the level 15 boss and how he can't keep up. At this, he wonders this is the level that Tokia Kurozu has been fighting at all this time. He thought the difference between them wasn't that big, but now he understands the power gap. The difference between the first and the 32nd in the world ranking is enormous. Suddenly, his friend appears and lands a powerful punch on the giant boss's face. She shouts for her companion to get up, as they need to hold on until their leader arrives. But the monster turns to her, and the white-haired girl is terrified by its giant hand. The giant boss grabs her tightly, and the girl screams in pain as the monster roars. But her friend reacts and uses his 8 trigrams palm technique to save her. With that, he fires a blast of golden energy that hits the monster's arm head-on. The impact of the blow makes the giant creature recoil and release the girl in the process. Surprised by the unexpected help, the white-haired young woman calls out to her companion. The fighter then says that the power difference doesn't matter, and that he will never give up. The system reveals that in this state, he can use his ki to perform long-range attacks. The huge boss roars furiously and charges at the man with glasses without hesitation. But the fighter is not intimidated, and with a serious look, he tells the creature not to underestimate him. He then dodges the attack and counterattacks with an energy strike to the enemy's chest. Without giving the boss time to react, he fires a sequence of golden energy blasts. The attacks hit the monster dead-on, causing a series of explosions around it. He thinks about how the special strength method his father taught him is coming in handy now. In a memory, his father explains that the bagua palms are not for close-quarters combat. His master reveals that with the true meaning of the technique, it's possible to attack from a distance. But the man with glasses admits that he still hasn't completely mastered the method. He then thinks that in his current state, his transformation only lasts for a total of 3 minutes. Suddenly, the ice boss roars with all its might and seems to have taken no damage. Its wounds heal instantly, and the fighter realizes the creature cannot be defeated. Even so, he says that if he can't harm the boss, he can at least delay it for a bit. With that, he fires a powerful blast of golden energy at the giant monster. The creature roars as the attack hits it, but the blow seems to have no effect. The fighter is shocked and wonders if the boss has already adapted to his palm's strength. The monster charges at high speed, and the man with glasses regrets forgetting how fast it was. At that moment, he prepares for battle and says that all he has left is to fight to the end. The fighter then unleashes an explosion of golden energy to try to stop the enemy's advance. He manages to hold the creature back with the palm of his hand, but is visibly at his limit. His stamina runs out, and the system informs him that his rage state has been deactivated early. With a tired look, he thinks that the continuous effort has consumed all his energy. The boss then prepares a powerful ice breath to finish off the defenseless fighter. Seeing the attack approach, the man with glasses wonders if this will be his end. But suddenly, several shots are fired at the giant monster, interrupting it. The bullets hit the boss head-on, which roars in pain and surprise at the unexpected attack. His friend is holding a revolver and says that saving her companion is the most important thing right now. The system screen reveals the weapon is an E-rank 6 shooter revolver that consumes stamina. The man with glasses is surprised and wonders how she got that item card. The giant creature roars furiously and turns all its attention to the white-haired girl. She then says she will hold on with him until the arrival of her beloved leader. Without hesitation, the young woman fires a sequence of shots that hit the boss in several places. The bullets continue to hit the monster, but the creature seems to ignore the attacks and advances. The fighter yells for his friend to run because the boss adapts to damage and can't be taken down. The girl is shocked and sees the monster's giant hand coming toward her to grab her. With no time to react, she is slammed against the ground by the huge and powerful creature. With an expression of fury on her face, the white-haired young woman seems unwilling to accept defeat. Even while being held, she continues to shoot nonstop and tells the giant monster to let her go. Suddenly, a beam of blue energy hits the boss dead on, knocking it away from her. The impact throws the girl aside, and her companion screams her name in despair. Lying on the ground, the two admit that the monster is too strong for them to face alone. The boss then prepares its extreme ice breath to finish off the pair once and for all. They are hit, and the fighter says that with a direct blow, they will both certainly be done for. Frozen, he sighs with regret and asks if his friend also has any regrets. The powerful ice attack continues to freeze everything around it, giving the pair no respite. The girl then reveals that her only regret is not having left with Takia. At that moment, a swift slash cuts through the ice and seems to slice through the boss's attack. The freezing blast is split in two by a powerful, glowing red energy strike. The young woman's jaw drops and she apologizes for an unexpected situation that occurred. The protagonist appears holding his friend and says he thought he'd never see her again. With a serious look, he thinks that if it had been 1 second longer, the two would have lost their lives there. He then says everything is safe now, as the conditions to clear the dungeon have been met. But the Ice Maiden appears again, screaming for blood and ready to attack the group. The giant monster is confused, not understanding what is happening around it. The Ice Maiden also seems lost, and her furious expression suddenly vanishes. A system screen appears and informs them that the secret condition to clear the dungeon has been met. With that, the Ice Boss's eyes begin to lose their previous evil glow. The same happens to the giant monster, which also seems to be finally calming down. The system confirms that the two bosses have met and the story to clear the dungeon has been released. Their monstrous forms begin to disappear, turning into white spirits. The girl returns to her human form and, with tears in her eyes, calls out for her father. Her father also returns to normal and calls for his daughter with a happy expression. In an emotional reunion, the father and daughter finally embrace after so long. The system confirms that the ending has been reached, and the memories of the past are implanted in the hero. Seeing the scene, he curses whoever's behind all this and swears he will get them. But the protagonist feels that something is wrong and wonders why a mission has been activated. Suddenly, the giant red eye appears and says that the Lord God is displeased with their speed. The scenery around the trio begins to distort and break as if it were glitching. His friend looks up, completely terrified, and wonders what that thing is. A system screen informs them that a boss-level mission has been activated and a god's scout has descended. A dark creature with a wicked smile appears and invites everyone to start over. The monster says that their responsibility is to satisfy and please the Lord God. With a wicked look, the creature announces that the real grand spectacle is about to begin. The dark creature then announces in a sinister voice that the real show begins now. With that, the father and daughter who had returned to normal scream in pain on the ground. Their bodies begin to transform again, and they revert to their monstrous appearances. The two giant ice bosses return, their purple eyes glowing with fury. The man with glasses is shocked and wonders how this is possible if they had already cleared it. Not understanding the situation, the two pets run toward their former masters. His friend screams in despair for the little animals to come back, as it's too dangerous to go there. The dark entity says they will also join the fun for the Lord God. The fighter realizes it wants to transform the pets and shouts that they can't let that happen. But Tokiya Kurosu charges forward with his glowing sword to stop the enemy's attack. The white-haired girl has a shocked expression as she watches the scene unfold. The entity faces the hero and says it's always him interfering with the god's spectacle. The protagonist thinks that the dungeon isn't so simple and that he only just noticed that eye. He notes that the creature has no level or health and isn't even a hostile monster. He remembers that he never saw anything like this in his past life, and the entity orders them to take him out. Having received the order, the two giant bosses turn to attack the black-haired young man. The hero then tells his friends to get the pets while he deals with the monsters. With that, the protagonist prepares for battle, his sword glowing red. Without wasting time, he charges full speed toward the two enemies. The young man then unleashes a powerful energy strike against the giant ice bosses. The protagonist thinks that the bosses can't be taken down and that he'll cut them to buy time. Meanwhile, the giant monster's health bars appear, showing they are taking damage. This leaves the black-haired young man confused, and he wonders why they are losing health. A system screen appears, starting phase 2 of the battle and giving the group a new mission. His friends are shocked and wonder what it means to extinguish the boss's souls. The dark entity explains that the meaning is literal and that they can destroy the souls. It says they were humans but offered their souls to a god, so there's no problem. The creature then turns to the protagonist and calls him an anomalous player with a smile. With a serious look, Tokiya Kurosu faces the evil entity, ready for whatever comes next. His friend is outraged and calls the creature a disgrace for doing this to people with a tragic fate. But the being of shadows says that all of this is just to satisfy its god's will. The entity points to the sky and says that the god is watching and that the show must not stop. The white-haired girl doesn't care about the god and shoots at the creature, telling it to stop the mission. However, the evil entity stops the bullet in mid-air with just 2 of its fingers effortlessly. With a mocking smile, the creature says that power of that level cannot harm it. The man with glasses is shocked and wonders what the level of that being with no stats is. The protagonist observes the scene and confirms that the entity really did catch the bullet with its hands. Meanwhile, the two giant monsters begin to fight each other furiously. Seeing this, the black-haired young man quickly moves to intervene in the boss's battle. But he hesitates, thinking that unsheathing his sword now would mean destroying their souls. He thinks that they're bosses now, but all they ever wanted was a moment of happiness. Suddenly, the protagonist's sword is driven into the ground, separating the two monsters. The black-haired young man then notices something unexpected and has a shocked look on his face. The huge ice monster begins to cry with blue tears streaming down its face. With that, Tokia Kurozu understands that the creatures are actually suffering and crying. At that moment, the spirits of the father and daughter appear and beg him to end it all. The hero then recognizes their voices and realizes it's a plea for help from the trapped souls. The girl says through tears that they can't bear to keep living like this anymore. Her father also asks the protagonist to please end the pain they feel. The giant monster lets out a roar of agony expressing all its suffering. With the spirits pleading, the black-haired young man seems to finally make a decision. The daughter explains that they no longer want to maintain a pathetic life hurting others. The female creature also roars in desperation, asking for it all to finally end. The entity of shadows watches everything with a smile and says this show is what the god wants. The evil being laughs and says that turning beauty into pain and hope into despair is entertaining. Tokia then promises the two that he will help them break free from that nightmare. But first, with that, he fires a powerful beam of red energy from the tip of his sword. He reveals that before freeing them, he's going to take care of a certain scoundrel first. With his eyes glowing red, he says he will punish the culprit in front of them. The entity is startled and asks what he's doing, but the hero says it's not immortal either. The red energy attack then slices the dark creature right down the middle without mercy. Surprised, the entity questions how he could have known it wasn't immortal. Tokia Kurozu then declares that sooner or later he will also defeat its god. He then yells for the creature to go to the underworld and wait for them there. As it's being split in two, the entity desperately calls for its god to save it. A huge explosion of red energy then completely engulfs the entire area. The being of shadows screams in disbelief at being defeated by a mere human. With a final flash of light, the powerful attack finally ends the creature's existence. His friends are amazed and say that was to be expected from their leader. But the protagonist gets serious and says there's still something else there. From the smoke, a new voice says it's unexpected that its subordinate was taken out by a toy. The girl is startled and questions what this other thing is that her leader mentioned. Her companion is also confused, wondering if the guy from before wasn't already defeated. From the shadows, a new, much larger and more imposing entity emerges, finding it all absurd. The gigantic being looks at them with pure fury and says that this makes it furious. The girl is terrified and wonders where that new guy came from. Her friend complains about the strong pressure that's making it hard for him to breathe. The young hero then faces the new threat and asks if it's going to fight them too. The new entity reveals that according to its god's rules, it cannot attack in this dungeon. But it warns the hero to remember its face, because next time it will put on a show for its god. The entity then tells him to live well until he is qualified to meet it and disappears. His friends can finally breathe again and comment on how terrifying that guy was. The protagonist thinks that the evil god's interference has advanced and that was its spokesperson. With the god's eye watching him, he swears he will walk this path to the end to take them all down. He then turns to the two ice bosses that were still standing there in front of him. The spirits thank him for taking out their anger and ask to be set free. With his sword glowing red, the young man prepares to grant the soul's request. He then charges forward and unleashes a powerful energy strike at the two monsters. The hero promises he will end everything in the way that causes them the least amount of pain. With a single precise slash, his sword passes through both ice bosses at the same time. The monsters' bodies begin to dissolve into thousands of golden light particles. The human forms of the father and daughter, made of light, appear floating in the air. With a smile on their faces, the two thank the protagonist for finally helping them. They embrace and say they are finally free from that endless suffering. The young man says his goodbyes and wishes them good luck in their next life to come. His companions comment that it's all over and that this was the best ending for them. Suddenly, the two pets that were with them also begin to glow intensely. The little animals float and dissolve, and their friends scream their names in despair. The pets then let out one last meow and bark before disappearing completely. Fallen on the ground, the two say their goodbyes and wish for them to be happy in the next life. The system announces that the D-rank dungeon has been cleared and the reward calculation has begun. The protagonist then comments that the dungeon is over and the scenery is starting to collapse. The reward is an all-attribute activation card, and everything can be taken to the real world. Elsewhere, some players complain about the cold and the monsters, wondering if they're going to make it. Then one of the frozen creatures roars furiously, its purple eyes glowing in the dark. The group runs in desperation, and one of them wonders how number one cleared the dungeon so easily. At that moment, someone's foot steps on and breaks a piece of ice on the hallway floor. With that, the red-haired player trips on the piece of ice and falls to the ground, startled. His friends look back and scream in despair, calling out their fallen leader's name. Without wasting time, the ice monster charges forward to attack the defenseless player on the ground. Terrified, he thinks this is his end, and that he still hasn't managed to become number one in the world. But suddenly a system screen appears in front of him, announcing that the dungeon has been cleared. The red-haired player stares at the screen as particles of light fall around him. With a relieved look, he celebrates that the dungeon has been cleared and that they barely survived. His friends also celebrate and wonder which great god was able to clear the dungeon. The screen then shows that Luo Shi had an 82% contribution and the others had far less. The other players are astonished by the percentage and wonder if the first-place player is even human. With the activation card, all attributes like strength, agility, and stamina rise to level 3. Tokia's companions are impressed by the huge power boost the reward gave. Eureka's status panel is revealed, showing her level 9 and the weapon she uses in battle. The fighter's panel is also shown, with his level 11 and a secret family martial art. Tokia then explains that the basic reward is over and that the real distribution begins now. With a 7% contribution, the girl gets attribute cards and player points. But Eureka complains because the mana cards she got are completely useless to her. Meanwhile, her companion with almost 11% gets a glove and an agility attribute card. This makes the man with glasses curious, and he wonders what effect the gloves he got have. A screen then reveals that the E-rank glove has a 3% chance of dealing double damage. Excited, the fighter thinks the effect could decide a fight if it activates at the right moment. His friends then turn to Kia and ask what his reward is with such a high contribution. The black-haired young man replies that it was just a few points in a card fragment, but he reveals that it's a fragment of a powerful, brightly glowing S-rank card. The system confirms his reward with the fragment and over 4,000 contribution points. His friends find the reward strange and wonder what the basis for the system's judgment is. With a smile, the protagonist says it seems like a bad prize, but it's actually quite reasonable. He explains that in the entire game, there are only 15 S-rank cards, and they are very hard to obtain. The young man remembers that to gain freedom in reverse time, he paid a tragic price. That's why he thinks getting an S-rank fragment this early in the second stage is very lucky. Tokia thinks that even though the game belongs to the evil gods, the rules are fair to everyone. He then puts the fragment away and thinks that he's one step closer to destroying the gods. The final screen shows the leaderboard with the protagonist in first place by a wide margin. The white-haired girl gets excited when she sees she also made it on the contribution list. Meanwhile, the man with glasses notes that the rankings are close and that he placed 31st. Tokia explains that as the rules become known, more experts will emerge, and his friend worries about rivals. But the protagonist reveals that his goal is to save the world, and the more allies, the better. He says it's not just his war, but a survival crisis for all of humanity. With that, he asks his friends to fight for humanity and forget their personal interests. Inspired, the two agree and promise they will fight for the survival of the human race. The young man then says goodbye to his comrades and says he'll see them in reality very soon. His two companions agree with a smile as their bodies disappear into pixels. Back in the real world, a black-haired woman watches the protagonist, who has just woken up. She then calls him by name and says he's finally awake, and the young man just confirms it. With a serious look, the hero seems to be processing everything that happened inside the dungeon. He thinks about how the game pulls people's consciousness and that the things he took are useless. His mother asks if he's hungry and offers to make him something to eat. With a smile, he realizes his mother has accepted the situation and that the game hasn't affected her. Suddenly, the system congratulates him on his first-place finish and announces that an extra reward will be issued. He thinks that no one can beat his score, and that's why the reward is coming early. At that moment, a dark energy appears around him and a mysterious card materializes. The black card floats in the air, surrounded by a dark purple energy aura. Surprised, the black-haired young man realizes that it's actually a class change card. The screen shows it's the Apprentice Shadow Mage card, a powerful A-rank class. He remembers that this class shown in his past life and that a guy destroyed a city with it. The protagonist thinks that even though the previous user was evil, the class's power is undeniable. He reflects that classes are neither good nor bad and can be used for good or for evil. With that, the young man decides he needs to find a suitable master for it since he can't use it. His mother then calls him to eat and says she prepared his favorite noodles for him to try. With a smile, he thanks her and decides to put his troubles aside to enjoy everyday life. Sitting with his mother, he says the food is delicious and enjoys the moment with her. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, and they both turn to see who it could be at this hour. His mother then gets up and walks toward the door to open it and greet the visitor. To her surprise, Eureka runs in, and the woman wonders what the girl is doing there. The protagonist is also surprised by the unexpected arrival of his teammate. Desperate, the girl grabs him and asks why her parents suddenly fell into a coma. With a serious look, he confirms that they are trapped inside the confinement game. Seeing her parents in the hospital bed, she asks if there is any way to save them. The young man then asks her to calm down and says that right now, there is no other way to get them out. He reveals that the only way to escape the game is by using the S-rank card called Freedom. The young man explains that passing away in the game means an eternal coma, and the person can truly be gone. With tears in her eyes, the white-haired girl asks if there's really no other way. The protagonist just remains silent with a serious expression, not knowing what to answer. With his eyes closed, the hero thinks he could give the card to his friend Eureka. But he surprises the girl by saying that there is, in fact, another way. He then takes the card from his pocket and offers it to her, telling her to get stronger. The white-haired young woman's jaw drops, unable to believe what she just heard. The protagonist says the goal is to become strong enough to take down the game's creators. She then asks if she'll get stronger just by using the card he gave her. He confirms that she will get stronger but warns that there's a catch to all of this. The black-haired young man reveals that there's a risk she could end up losing her own mind. He explains that without determination, she could be reduced to a tool for the evil gods. His friend is surprised and questions if the class card has that kind of side effect. The hero confirms it and says that things given by the evil gods always have bad intentions. He thinks that the class change brings opportunity, but also the purest despair. Inside each card, there's a fragment of the consciousness of one of the evil gods. And for insignificant humans, this can cause a complete and irreversible mental collapse. After that, they are dominated and become just another one of the gods' faithful followers. He then reveals the reason why he wasn't affected by this evil consciousness. The young man says his heart was forged in steel by the suffering of his past life. Since then, he has had only one goal in his life, which is to defeat them all. With a determined look, she thinks that if she doesn't get strong, her parents will never wake up. For that reason, the white-haired girl says she understands and is willing to try her luck. With a determined look, Eureka grabs the protagonist's hand and asks him for the card. The hero's mother tries to stop her, saying she is too young and shouldn't be so impulsive. But the girl thanks her and says that if he risks his life, she can too because she loves her family. At this, the older woman is surprised by the white-haired girl's strong determination. She then lets go of the girl's arm and wishes her good luck on her difficult journey. At this, Eureka asks Tokia to finish her off without hesitation if she turns into a monster. The system then announces that the class change to Apprentice Shadow Mage has begun. Holding the card, she says she's counting on him as the dark energy envelopes her. The hero reflects on her request and thinks he could never do something like that. He remembers a vision where a monstrous Eureka screamed for him to run and get away from there. The white-haired girl starts to be consumed by the energy, and he swears he will bring her back. With that, the young woman screams in pain, her eyes white, as the dark energy overpowers her. The dark energy then spreads throughout the room with an overwhelming and sinister force. From the doorway, the protagonist's mother asks what's happening to her son's friend. He then tells his mother to leave and not let anyone in until he gives an answer. With a serious look, the young man realizes that the evil god's consciousness has begun to invade her spirit. He thinks that to help her, he needs mental abilities, but he doesn't have any at the moment. The hero then looks up and calls for a being with spiritual abilities that lives in his body. A dark entity appears and replies that it's natural, as they are everywhere. With that, he asks to enter her mental world, but the being says it cannot do that. The dark entity warns him that if he doesn't defeat the invader, he will perish in there. But with a confident look, the protagonist states that he won't perish and that he will certainly win. The being of shadows likes his confidence and agrees to send him into the mental battle. The entity says that if he doesn't resolve this, he won't be worthy of help, and Takia glows blue. With that, a beam of blue energy shoots from his chest at high speed. The energy beam hits the girl who is being consumed by darkness head-on. In his spirit form, the hero says that the god's consciousness will not take his friend. His soul then enters Eureka's mental world to help her in the internal battle. Floating in a dark place, he realizes he is inside his friend's mental world. Then, in the distance, the black-haired young man spots a line of shadowy figures. Looking closer, he wonders if that is the soul of his teammate. But he sees two versions of Eureka fighting bravely against several shadow monsters. The protagonist is confused by the scene and wonders why there are two of her there. The evil consciousness tells her to show her capability and survive the attack. Seeing the enemies increasing, the two motivate each other, saying they must win for their parents. With that, the horde of dark creatures roars and charges full speed at the two of them. The monsters then fire several dark energy spheres toward the girls. The purple energy spheres fly at high speed, ready to hit their target. The fighter version of Eureka warns that if they are hit directly, it will be the end for them. The other then pulls out her revolver and asks her other half to create an opportunity. The evil consciousness then tells her to show her capability and survive the creature's attack. But the protagonist appears with his glowing sword and says he will help them in the mental battle. The two versions of the girl are left speechless, unable to believe he managed to get in there. He explains that the dark mages are illusions and that they must defeat them on their own. But the young man states that he can help them deal with the evil god's consciousness controlling them. Without wasting time, he charges forward, unleashing several blue energy slashes in the process. With a furious look, he thinks that he won't let them corrupt his friend again in this life. With that, the hero yells for them not to dare and unleashes a flurry of swift strikes. Surprised, they wonder how he got there and comment that the enemies are no match for him. The fighter version then says to leave the enemies to Takia and focus on the main three. At this, the three larger shadow mages prepare a powerful dark energy attack. The dark energy concentrates into a single point and prepares to be fired at them. The version with the gun desperately warns that the dark orb attack is coming toward them. A huge dark energy sphere is fired and her other half yells for them to dodge. With a shocked expression, the white-haired girl is pulled aside at the last second. They realize the orb has a devouring effect and that Takia wasn't lying about the class's power. Suddenly, several other dark energy orbs appear and surround the two cornered girls. With no chance to react, the two are hit head-on and thrown far away by the attacks. Fallen, they realize the difference between the charged attacks and the instant casts. Then the version with the gun gets up and says they can't just keep taking hits and need to fight back. The armed version then fires at one of the shadow mages to test their defense. The enemy's health bar shows the damage was low, dropping only to 85%. She is shocked because with 2 shots, she only took off 15% of its health and their defense is high. Her other half says it's good to deal any damage and that one will dodge while the other attacks. So they dodge the orbs, but the tactic isn't as easy as it sounds and requires a lot of energy. She thinks that her physical fitness here is the same as in reality, and if her stamina runs out, they lose. In addition, she realizes that reloading the gun also consumes her stamina, putting her at a disadvantage. For that reason, the two versions of the girl decide they need to seize every chance they get in order to win. Meanwhile, Takia notices that the smaller monsters have gathered but don't dare to advance on him. With a serious look, the protagonist says that since the creatures don't dare come to him, then he himself will charge full speed at them with his sword glowing blue. Seeing the young man approach, the shadow creatures become afraid and start to retreat. Suddenly, all the smaller monsters begin to merge into a single dark creature. But he says that running is useless and that as evil gods, they must all be eliminated without exception. With that, the protagonist unleashes a massive energy slash that goes straight for the enemies. However, after the attack, the black-haired young man has a surprised expression on his face. The monsters have merged into a giant, terrifying creature that stares at him with sharp teeth. He then says that as expected, this is its real form, and a god's consciousness wouldn't be weak. With a wicked look, the giant creature faces the protagonist, ready for the final combat. Undaunted, the black-haired young man prepares for battle and charges with his sword. With his eyes glowing red, the hero prepares to fight with everything he's got. He then says it doesn't matter if the creature is weak or strong, and attacks it with his sword. The shadow monster has a surprised expression upon seeing the power of the attack. Holding his red energy sword, he says that to him, it makes no difference. The protagonist then unleashes a massive energy slash that illuminates all the darkness. The powerful red attack cuts the giant creature in half, giving it no chance to defend. After the blow, a mysterious voice congratulates him and says the intelligent life form was not devoured. The black-haired young man wonders whose voice it is but realizes it's not really a voice. He understands that it's a radio wave converted into a language he can understand. The voice explains that the S-rank card is the chance for resistance they created with their power. With that, it warns him not to be deceived by the gods and become their accomplice. Takia thinks that the S cards are the chance to fight back, but they were devoured by the gods. He then wonders if they are life forms from other civilizations that were destroyed in the past. The hero thought the S cards were a power that not even the gods could resist, but he was wrong. He swears he will seize the opportunity they left behind and asks them to watch from space. With a determined look, Tokia Kurozu says that this planet will be the tomb of the evil gods. His spiritual form vanishes, and he says he can no longer stay in her mental world. Meanwhile, the two versions of Eureka run together, seemingly having won their part of the fight. The protagonist's spirit appears and says they can handle the situation on their own now. One of them asks if he's leaving already, and the other comments on how strong he is for having solved everything. He then says goodbye, and tells them to focus on completing the class change so they can meet. The two versions of the girl are confused and wonder why he referred to them in the plural. They realize he can't know their secret, and that in reality, they need to disguise themselves well. A large dark energy sphere that materializes in front of the two white-haired young women. They say they first need to obtain the class to save their parents as an apprentice mage. Without hesitation, the two charge forward and attack the dark energy sphere together. His spirit smiles and encourages her to conquer the gods and become a reliable ally.